Over from the Dutch Grand Prix. You'll hear that in full, the Dutch Grand Prix on 5 Sports Extra. Lando Norris on pole for the 4th time in his F1 career, ahead of Max Verstappen for his home race. Let's take you live to Zandvoort, which sounds bouncy. Our 5 Live F1 team, Rosanna Tennant and Harry Benjamin are there. I mean, no surprise, Rosanna, that it is bouncy. It's a heck of an event.
Oh, it's like a festival with a little Grand Prix attached to it, and it's about as close as I'm ever going to come to a rave, Crossy, I tell you that. I'm about as edgy as a circle, so I'm going to take this one.
As the great Harry F1 atmospheres go, it's not just because it's Max Verstappen's home race. Dutch F1 fans are just generally great, aren't they?
Honestly, this is a party. You know, we get the train in every day. We're staying sort of near Amsterdam, so you'll be getting on the train. It's about a 25-minute journey, and it is absolutely rammed full of literally the Orange Army. They're all here for Max Verstappen, but they're also just enjoying being involved, having a circuit right by the beach. It's sort of almost a little seaside town, really, that you could mistake sometimes for being in the UK. It was very windy and rainy last night, so we were having dinner outside on the beach as well. But they're already just outside our commentary box. The grandstand's full. Everyone's dancing, doing a Mexican wave, waving the flags. They just love it here.
I got a bit confused there, Rosanna, because I heard that bell tolling and assumed it must have been like 1 o'clock or the top of the hour or something. But no, it's just more fun.
Yeah, just another tone that the DJ's putting through. The DJ just putting through another tone to get the fans even more pumped up and ready for the race.
And they will be pumped up, Rosanna. Max Verstappen hasn't won any of his last 6 races. He has always won, though, at Zandvoort since it came onto the calendar back in 2021. So, I mean, they will feel like he needs them today.
Yeah, I think they're going to be an extra gear in his Formula 1 car this afternoon. But you're right, he hasn't won since the Spanish Grand Prix. That's a long, long time ago. We've had so many races since then. They're going to hope he can get back to winning ways. I think they probably thought they were going to see him put it on pole yesterday. I think many people kind of just always expecting that from Max Verstappen. But he himself has said, in the past, if he qualified not on pole position, he had the car to fight through. OK, he's on the front row this afternoon, but I think he still doubts whether he's got the car to take the win. The fans are going to hope he has.
Expectation is the word, though, Harry, isn't it? Because for the first time in a long time with Formula 1, we don't know what to expect. Forget the fact that Verstappen is still way clear in the driver's standings and is probably going to win the title anyway. The point is the day-to-day drama of Formula 1 is back.
It's so good to be involved with Formula 1 right now. Look, OK, on our off days, it can be a little bit monotonous, but right now, it is so good. We had 7 different winners in the first 14 races of the season, the first half. We've got 10 races till the end. And genuinely, we come into the weekend not quite knowing who's going to be challenging right at the front. We can have a general idea. But make no mistake, Max Verstappen and Red Bull are still one of the quickest cars out there. But the others have now caught up. They're not dominating like we're so used to seeing them. We have now got McLaren up there consistently. Even Mercedes as well, with Lewis Hamilton and George Russell being lost for so long, seem to have found their way back towards the front. Ferrari, a little bit more work to do for them as well. Lando Norris has the advantage right now, but I generally don't know what's going to happen over the course of the next 70 or so laps.
A quick question to DJ Stuart Downing here. What did you think of the mix there between brass band to Europop?
That was a bit heavy, but I'm wondering if me and Pat could probably get a gig later on there. I don't know.
I think there's always availability on the schedule, I understand, in F1. Right, let's hear from Lando Norris. 78 points behind Max Verstappen in the drivers' standing, but race by race, it hasn't been this good in years. Here is Norris.
An amazing day, nice to be back and start with a pole. It was a nice lap, honestly. The qualifying was always pretty smooth and put in some good laps, especially the one at the end, which is always the most important. So great job by the team and happy with today.
And everyone's talking about these weather conditions, the wind, the rain. You seem to be happy across the board. Every lap that you're doing is right at the front, rain or shine, wind or no wind.
It's harder than it looks, I think. I mean, everyone's complaining of it because it is tricky. It's not easy out there. And every lap you have to kind of know what to expect and know how much more you can push, where the limits are. But that's our job in the end of the day. So it's not easy, but I felt comfortable out there. The car was feeling amazing. We've got some upgrades on the car for first time in a while. And everything's working very well, so a big thanks to the team too.
It's a shorter run to the first corner than Barcelona and Budapest. Can you hang on to it?
I don't know why you're saying that, but Max has been quick all weekend. I know we got him today, but he's still second and he's going to be putting up a good fight. especially at this home race. So looking forward to it.
Lando Norris speaking to Julian Palmer. So we've got Harry and Rosanna. Delighted to say we also have with us the other part of the F1 team this afternoon, and that is British racing driver Alice Powell. Alice, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, thank you. I think we do know why Lando Norris was asked that question. It's because being on pole is one thing, turning that into P1 after turn 1 is another.
Yeah, it certainly is. And actually, if you're brave enough, you can hold it round the outside here. And we've seen in some of the support races throughout today that if you're brave enough, you're taking a big risk because you can be easily squeezed onto the very bumpy rumble strips on the outside. So he'll know Max has got such incredible support here. It's absolutely buzzing. I've been fighting my way through the fans to get to the commentary box.
Your
but
fans.
He'll they're Harry's fans, really. He'll know he's got the big support behind him. But I feel like that doesn't really affect Max. He just wants to win either way.
I always say this to the driver on the team: take us into the car, because everybody's talking about the conditions and the wind, and we just heard Lando Norris speaking about it then. Just give us an impact. The conditions are as they are now, Alice, and how they're likely to develop. How much of a difference is that going to make?
Well, it's the unpredictability which springs into it. These are big, heavy cars. They rely a lot on their aerodynamic. And if you have a blustery wind, it can make it unpredictable. You could be nice and smooth into turn one lap, and you'll get a big gust of wind, which can really then affect you the next lap. So it's just it messes with your references. You know, these drivers will know, right, you know, for example, I'm braking at 75 metres. But then that can change with the tailwinds that they keep springing up on them, essentially heading down into turn 1. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see quite a few lockups, a few running wide going down into turn 1. So the drivers will have to be aware. And of course, these lockups can play a part in the tyre degradation as well. If you have a lockup or a flat spot, you can destroy a set of tyres quite easily. So it's going to play a big part today.
You know what I'm looking forward to, guys, is, as always, Rosanna, Max Verstappen's radio chat is fun. But I think
you're going to say the next segue of the DJ.
Well, that's
We're
a
all
given.
hanging on that, aren't
That's a given. Because Verstappen has gone in the last 2 races before the break, either ends of the spectrum. Firstly, almost as aggressive as he has been, which is saying something after he was staying up doing racing sims until 2 a.m. But then in the final race before the break, super polite. So I wonder if he's actually had a bit of a rebuke there, and it may actually have hit home.
Yeah, we had a little bit of childish Max, didn't we?
Yeah.
The sort of 2021 Max out on track and on the radio. Do you know what? In Belgium, last time out before the summer break, I saw Max and his engineer, Giampiero Lambiesi, having a little chat privately in the paddock. I mean, is anything ever done privately? I think it was kind of for everyone's benefit, but they were having a bit of a chat. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how he is on the radio. There's definitely frustration with Verstappen at the moment. It sounds weird to say that, seeing as he's P2 on the front row, but he's been calling out the team, saying that they need to improve again, which sounds strange for such dominant world championship winning team. So I don't know, it's going to be one to watch. Interesting to see how he deals with today. If he's in the lead, it might all be fine, but if he's up against it and Lando Norris can hold on to that P1 spot off the lead, maybe we'll see a frustrated Verstappen.
Yeah, we know what that sounds like. Thank you very much, guys. Rosanna and Harry and Alice. I also saw, just sort of lingering in the background, our correspondent Andrew Benson as well, who you'll be able to see covering the race on the BBC Sport website. You will hear it.
Front row.
Hopefully we'll get you on the grid as well a little bit closer to race time. Thank you very much, guys. The Grand Prix live from Zandvoort, 5 Sports Extra from 1:45. Let's take you back into the Scottish Premiership.
Formula One on 5 Live.
Formula One is back from its summer break. 14 races down, 10 to go as the circus arrives in Zandvoort here in the Netherlands. The second shortest circuit on the calendar, nestled in the Dutch dunes right on the coast of the North Sea. About a half an hour train from Amsterdam, and the home race for reigning champion and current championship leader Max Verstappen. The Orange Army have come out in full this afternoon. The grandstands a sea of orange, but so far this weekend that orange may well have to go to the McLaren allegiances, because they have looked like they have got the edge, and Lando Norris carried that form into qualifying, securing pole position, and he shares the front row with Max Verstappen, who has won every race here since it came back onto the calendar in 2021. They're sharing the front row. Could we get fireworks with a 161 metre run down to turn 1? Formula One is back in business, and to guide you through all the coverage alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, is racing driver Alice Powell. Alice, there is a lot of pressure on Lando Norris in that run down to turn 1.
Yeah, there certainly is. It's one of these runs where we heard from the McLaren team principal, team boss there earlier on, that actually that run down into turn 1, if you are on the outside, you can brave it. You can chance it round the outside. A little bit of camber on the inside helps. It is quite dusty offline, but we've seen in the support races here today that moves can be made at the start round the outside. So that's something to watch. And Max Verstappen, we know, whether it's his home Grand Prix or not, he just wants to win. So if he does get a good launch and maybe doesn't get the inside of Lando Norris, I wouldn't be surprised that we'll see him try and swing it around the outside.
We'll run you down all of the storylines through the grid in the build-up to Lights Out in just over 10 minutes' time. Indeed, the whole weekend has been a little bit truncated, either with incident on track or mixed conditions. We've had some incredibly blustery wind and rain so far this weekend. Rosanna Tennant down on the ground for us by the paddock and the pit lane. What are we expecting weather condition-wise this afternoon?
Well, it's been dry all day, Harry. Of course, we've had torrential rain over the course of the weekend and some mixed conditions as well. But now it's dry. There's blue sky, but there are some big clouds around and some dark ones at that, one of which is actually over the start-finish straight. So I'm keeping an eye on that, keeping an eye on an umbrella as well, I have to say. And there is a very strong breeze. It's been blustery all weekend with some really severe gusts of up to 70 kilometres an hour. So we've spoken about that, how difficult that can be for drivers setting up the car and approaching different turns around the track. But at the moment, it's nice and warm, nice and sunny. Don't forget, we are just by the seaside. Over the grandstand is the dunes, the beach. So we've got the North Sea just aside from us. But at the moment, it's like being on a beach holiday rather than a sort of wet, damp British holiday. And I tell you what, the Dutch fans are loving it. You can hear the music blaring. They've been given flags in the colour of the Dutch national flag, and they're waving them very vigorously, and everyone trying to get a view of Max Verstappen, who's just standing next to his car with his cap on, having a chat with Giampiero Lambiase, his race engineer, and Rupert, his trainer, is just standing next to him as well, and just along from them is Christian Horner and Dr. Helmut Marko. So not in the car just yet, Max Verstappen, biding his time on that one, but soon the drivers will be jumping into their cars.
Brilliant, thanks Rosanna. Down on the paddock, as indeed the drivers get themselves down on the grid, even I should say, down as they get ready for the start of the race. 72 laps ahead of us for this Dutch Grand Prix. Also joining us in the commentary box is the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Andrew, what are you keeping an eye out for over the course of this Grand Prix?
Well, it's an open race, Harry. Strategy is difficult to predict. For one stop or two stop, they're predicting to be similar times for the race, but overtaking is really hard around Zandvoort, so that'll push a lot of teams towards a one stop, as will the 23-second pit stop time. It's really interesting to think what might happen at the start. Will Max Verstappen go for the soft tyre to try and get into the lead? Because then the risk with the soft tyre is that it wears out too quickly, and then you can end up pitting into a group of cars you can't get past. But if you've got track position, you can control the pace and you can make your tyres last longer, as we saw in Belgium 4 weeks ago, when, remember, Oscar Piastri finally got into some free air during the race. He went, free air is king. He couldn't believe how much quicker he could go. So it's really uncertain as to how people are going to run the race. I think medium hard is probably the preferred strategy, but Verstappen will be doing everything to get into that track position at the front at the start, not least because he thinks the McLaren is a quicker car fundamentally.
Yeah, certainly does. McLaren bringing a big upgrade this weekend, their first really since the overhaul upgrade that they put on the car back in Miami. But of course, a couple of other teams bringing upgrades as well. Red Bull also bringing upgrades this weekend, but the general tone out of Red Bull at the moment doesn't seem to be full of positivity. They are still one of the quickest teams on the grid, but Andrew, it just seems like everybody is caught up to them.
Well, Max Verstappen has gone back to the first floor design of the season this weekend.
Well, let's just hear from the big boss at Red Bull, Christian Horner, who's with Rosanna.
Well, Christian, a front row start. We've just been deliberating in the commentary box which floor you're running, and let's just clear that up first so Andrew Benson knows what to write.
Which floor?
Yes.
A Red Bull one.
An old version or the newest version?
Look, we're trying a few different things this weekend, so we've learned a lot already. So the race is going to be really interesting for us.
Max was satisfied with P2. Does that say a lot about where the car is at the moment?
Well, I think, look, we put a bit more emphasis on the race. Let's see. I mean, you just don't know how things are going to play out with the deck, with strategy, with the conditions. So, and the wind. It's very windy today.
And with Sergio Perez starting a little further back, that driver training he had over the summer break, are you pleased with what you're seeing?
Yeah, look, he's come back with a clear head after the summer break, and I thought he did a great job yesterday, and I hope he can capitalise on that today.
Good luck today.
Thank you.
Christian Horner, there we go, Harry. Hopefully that's cleared up a few things.
Thanks, Rosanna.
I don't think he gave us much information, did he? He didn't want to answer that floor question, did he? I can assure you it is the first generation of floor from this season.
There we have the matter covered off then. 200th Grand Prix start for Max Verstappen as well. 4th time sharing the front row with Lando Norris. Alice, we mentioned Sergio Perez there as well. To the surprise of many, he's clung on to that second Red Bull seat. There is a lot of pressure on him as well to deliver. It's not an odds on that he will still be here come the end of the season. Qualified 5th though, so do you think he'll be happy with that?
Well, it's better than his recent qualifying, so he should be happy with that, but he needs to make sure that he doesn't go backwards at the start, which is obviously, for any driver out there, is easier said than done. He needs to try and put the Mercedes of George Russell under pressure, and then he can then try and join that top 3 sort of battle with Piastri, Verstappen, Norris, if they of course stay in that order. So Perez really needs to make sure that he doesn't drop backwards.
No, we'll be starting just behind George Russell, who is in 4th, the lead Mercedes. And actually, I think we expected a little bit more from Mercedes, but McLaren seemed to be a distance ahead. Russell, that's a good qualifying for him in 4th. Lewis Hamilton, on the other hand, down in 14th. Not only did he not get through into Q3 because of a mistake on his final lap, but also a penalty for impeding Sergio Perez, a 3-place grid penalty during that qualifying session, carried over then into the race himself. What can he do from 14th? Can he score points?
Yeah, he can definitely score points, but if he keeps out of trouble, which is easier said than done round here for sure, but a lot of people are sort of saying, well, that penalty was a bit harsh. I think that he did sort of impede Perez. To be honest, people's views on that are slightly different, but I think, whether it justified having that much of a grid drop, no, but he certainly impeded Perez, but he's, without a shadow of doubt, has got the pace to challenge inside the top 10. Gasly and the 2 Aston Martins, they may be slightly vulnerable there. Sainz is going to want to move forward as well. I'm actually really intrigued with this battle that we will have between sort of 7th down to even where Hamilton is in 14th.
Well, yeah, and in that top 10, Andrew, the 2 Aston Martins, Fernando Alonso 7th, Lance Stroll 8th. From the last few races, they appear to have been a little bit in no man's land. Is this an encouraging move forward for them?
Well, Fernando Alonso was he didn't use that phrase, no man's land, but it was basically what he was saying. He was saying we're competing for 9th and 10th every race now. But he also said that the last 2 years, Zandvoort have been a good track for that team, and whether it's because of that or whether they've found a little bit of understanding in the car or whether he just pulled out a great lap, I don't know, but 7th is better than he would have expected to qualify. And his teammate Lance Stroll has been promoted to right behind him because of the various penalties that have been going on, Alex Albon's in particular. So I don't think Alonso's expecting to be able to go forward from that position. He'd be worried about Sainz behind him and also Hamilton, but he'd be looking to score a couple of points and keep his little tally ticking along. Yeah, well, just while you mention it, one of the other penalties was for Alex Albon in that Williams, heavily upgrading, and it's turned into a bit of a terrible weekend for Williams, hasn't it, after Logan Sargent's huge crash in free practice 3. Well, a bit of an embarrassment for Williams, frankly, on this floor. This is their first big upgrade of the season, and it turned out to be illegal. They said that they'd measured it themselves a bunch of times with the scanning software that they use, because the floors are so 3D these days, you can't just measure height, width and depth. But their calibration is obviously not the same as the FIA's, which is the one that matters, and it was found to be too big. So they've had to change it. Now, James Vowles, the team principal, said he didn't understand and they would have to go away and work out what had gone wrong in those measurements. He says it was an easy fix, but an easy fix in this case means loss of performance. So whether Albon can indeed come through the field in the way that Vowles suggested, he might be able to. We'll have to wait and see. It's a shame, actually, that they've made that mistake, because it did look like to be a really good upgrade, but of course all the other teams in the pit lane will be going, yeah, that's fine, but it broke the rules.
Yeah, exactly.
He had initially qualified up in 8th, and now, well, Sargent will be 18th on the grid. Albon just up behind him in 19th. Kevin Magnussen will be starting from the pit lane in the Haas after he has exceeded the allowance of power unit elements, the energy store and control electronics, and some more changes on the park for May. So he will go from the pit lane. We'll have 19 cars on the grid then, one from the pits. On the subject of the Ferraris, Alice, Leclerc starting in 6th. Carlos Sainz initially wasn't inside that top 10. What's going on with Ferrari at the moment? They just seem to have, having been the second fastest team in the first 7 races of the season, the last 7 haven't quite gone their way, and it feels like they're now lagging behind, not only on track, but of course in that development race as well, off track.
Yeah, there'll be questions, and they'll obviously be really disappointed with, as you said, the results from where they started to where they are now. And like you again said, it is a development race. It is a race on track as much as it is off track, with the teams working so hard in the factories to make sure that they develop these cars within the rules, which unfortunately for Williams that they haven't. But there'll be lots of work that will continue, like all the teams back at the factory.
Well, we are just a few moments away then from getting Lights Out underway, and just on cue, Andrew, we now know what the tyre situation will be for the 20 drivers. Can you enlighten us?
Yeah, well, basically all the top 10 have gone for medium tyres, which is interesting because there was speculation before the race that Verstappen and Red Bull might try the soft to gain track position on Norris, but they've obviously decided that's too much of a risk. Tyre wear could be high. It's a very tricky circuit for the tyres because of the long duration corners and the high speeds, the medium and high speeds. So he's gone safe, and maybe he's banking on his usual excellent start and first lap performance to try and get that lead instead of just a soft tyre. Hamilton, though, in 14th is on the soft, so he'll be looking to gain some ground on that tyre as quickly as he can before it goes off. We'll have to see if that pays off for him.
Yep, certainly will. Well, just to reiterate, that front row will be Lando Norris, Max Verstappen alongside Piastri and Russell, rounding out the top 4. We'll bring you the whole grid in just a minute or so's time. But last kind of preparations happening on the grid before the formation lap. Alice, what is happening with the drivers in the cockpit? What are the team motions going on?
So the drivers will be getting strapped in. They will be fully strapped in actually now. They'll have the last sips of water from their in-car water bottle lightly, just adjustments to the glove, adjustments to the helmet. Fans will still be, I can see a fan still cooling George Russell. It's not particularly warm here, but once you've got all those layers on, you've got the helmet on, the fireproof underwear and the fireproof suit, it can get fairly toasty. Air temperatures at 18.4 degrees. Visor down already for Lando Norris as we're heading towards the green flag lap, so he's in full focus mode. Max Verstappen visor open, looks a little bit more chill, having a little look around the crowds to the left hand side of him. Wheel covers then come off the cars, and they'll push the cars back to lay a little bit of rubber down when they leave the grid.
Well, the grandstands are absolutely packed. The Orange Army out in full force for Max Verstappen, but will it be the Papaya McLarens that put a dampness onto that? 72 laps ahead of us here in Zandvoort. It's time for the Dutch Grand Prix. Third pole position of the season for Lando Norris in the McLaren. He starts alongside Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Piastri is third. George Russell, the lead Mercedes, goes from fourth, ahead of Sergio Perez, who rounds out the top five. The first of the Ferraris is Charles Leclerc. He starts in sixth, ahead of Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin and his teammate Lance Stroll right behind. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine and Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari round out the top 10. Then it's Yuki Tsunoda in 11th, ahead of the Haas of Hülkenberg in 12th. Daniel Ricciardo promoted to 13th, with Lewis Hamilton, that 3-place grid penalty for impeding in qualifying, putting him in 14th, ahead of Ocon 15th. Bottas and Zhou, the two Sauber drivers, 16th and 17th. Then it's the two Williams cars. Logan Sargent didn't take part in qualifying, starts 18th. Alex Albon disqualified from qualifying, goes 19th, with Kevin Magnussen in the Haas going from the pit lane. Well, just a 10% chance of rain then, but the wind certainly blustering. A tailwind down the start-finish straight as the cars making their way around for the formation lap, getting heat into the tyres, and will practice a couple of burnouts as they approach their starting grid spots. And that is exactly what they're doing, just getting heat into the tyres. Is there anything else that's going on inside the cockpit, Alice?
Yeah, heat into the tyres is really, really important. We've got an adjustment of the gloves there is that Charles Leclerc with the helmet camera that we just saw. So final adjustments, final preparations, final settings on the steering wheel. The engineers will start to reduce the chatter that there might be on the radio. Cars come round the final bend, the 18 degrees of camber that's on turn 14, continue to move left to right, and then those final wheel spins as they come up to their grid box.
Yeah, indeed. Lando Norris and Max Verstappen already on the start-finish straight, pulling into their grid boxes. Rosanna Tennant.
It's a lot cooler, Harry. The sun is still shining in parts, but there are some big, big clouds around. The temperature really feels like it's dropped, and it is incredibly windy. Difficult to know how the cars are going to behave in these conditions.
Thanks, Rosanna. And a big fight happening in the Constructors' Championship as well, just to bring you up to speed. Red Bull, 408 points to their name, only 42 ahead of McLaren. Then it's Ferrari in third, Mercedes, Aston Martin the top five, RB embroiled in a great fight with Haas over 6th and 7th, Alpine 8th, then it's Williams 9th, Sauber still the only team yet to get off the mark in terms of points. They are 10th and last. It is of course Verstappen who leads the championship in the drivers. He's got a 78-point gap against Lando Norris. Verstappen, though, will start on the front row in second. Alongside him will be Lando Norris on pole position. The two Williams cars at the back. A Haas of Magnussen in the pit lane. Green flag flies at the back of the pack. It is all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in Zandvoort. And it's a good start from Verstappen and a poor start from Norris. Verstappen into the lead as they get into the braking zone of turn 1. Piastri under pressure from George Russell for third. Russell wins the spot over the McLaren. It's the two McLarens going backwards into turn 1, and it's advantage for Verstappen and George Russell as they make their way through the banked left-hander of Hugenholtz. That's turn 3, but a nice clean start from most of the field, and it's now Charles Leclerc who's trying to get right onto the back of Oscar Piastri in the second McLaren, but it's Verstappen who leads.
Not a great start for both McLaren drivers, each losing one place, but a good start for Pierre Gasly. He managed to jump both Aston Martin's. Perez, though, he lost a place to Charles Leclerc, but under huge pressure is Oscar Piastri. He'll be really disappointed with dropping back, and so will Lando Norris.
Certainly is. Verstappen leads there, Norris second, Russell up to third, Piastri fourth, then comes Charles Leclerc in fifth, and a little bit of a battle brewing further back between the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg and the RB just behind him as well. That's Yuki Tsunoda in the battle for 11th and 12th. Hülkenberg winning that one out. Where is Lewis Hamilton? Has he made gains? He's made up one spot for the time being in 13th. He's just behind that battle between the Haas and the RB, the 7-time champion, watching on as he tries to claw his way up into the points. But end of lap 1 then, it's Max Verstappen who leads by a second as Pierre Gasly goes toe-to-toe with Fernando Alonso into turn 1. Gasly defending 7th place from Alonso, who then dives down the inside at turn 3. Two very different lines can be taken, such as the nature of the banking, but it's Gasly who holds on to that 7th spot.
You need to be close there, you need to be brave there as well to make that move work. Not quite close enough for Fernando Alonso. DRS is now available to the drivers and pretty much everyone. Lando Norris is actually just about hanging on to the back of Max Verstappen. Max could break this DRS zone quite easily, and he probably has done that. We will wait for them to come out of turn 10, which is the final DRS zone available on the lap. Lewis Hamilton is still trying to get past Yuki Tsunoda, has a look down into turn 10. He's now sweeping left, sweeping right, dives down the inside, Harry, into turn 11, manages to make it stick.
Gets the move done. In fact, Tsunoda also had the aid of the DRS, but the Mercedes driver gets the job done. Hamilton up into 12th, Tsunoda down to 13th, and now having to look at his mirrors because Valtteri Bottas in the Sauber is all over the back of him. DRS then activated the drag reduction system. The rear wing flies open in the designated zones when you're within a second of the car in front, and if you are the car behind, it gives you about a 6/10 advantage. That's around about 20 kilometers an hour, and that is quite a large advantage it can give you around this track. Such is the nature of it, with those incredibly banked corners. The second shortest circuit on the calendar, just over 2.6 miles and 14 turns, 4 to the left and 10 to the right. But it's Verstappen who got in the lead by the time we got into turn, and then already has a 1.3 second advantage and has just set the fastest lap. It's Verstappen ahead of Norris, then Russell is third, Piastri down to fourth, Leclerc up into fifth, Perez losing a spot down to sixth, Gasly with good improvements up to seventh, still ahead of Alonso in eighth, Sainz has made a gain up to ninth, Lance Stroll, one of the bigger losers, down to 10th. That rounds out the point scorers. Then comes Hülkenberg, Hamilton up into 12th, Tsunoda 13th, Bottas and Ricciardo the top 15, then it's Ocon, Albon, Sargent, Zhou Guanyu and Magnussen, who started from the pit lane, still 20th and last.
So Verstappen has stretched his legs already in both the first and second sector. In each of those, he's 0.3 of a second faster. George Russell, we just saw an onboard from Oscar Piastri looking ahead to George Russell, and the Mercedes snaking on the throttle through turn 10. Oscar all over the back of the British driver. Sergio Perez now has clawed his way back up to the back of Charles Leclerc, so another driver that's also under pressure. But Norris has had a pretty decent last sector actually to Max Verstappen. Max didn't have a personal best there, so gap now has dropped from reduced from 1.5 down to 1.2, but it's tricky. This section of track is hard to follow in a single-seater, and particularly an F1 car as well, so we'll likely see that gap start to open up again, and it'll be time soon for Lando Norris to start deciding, right, I don't want to be too close. I want to try and look after this set of medium tyres. And of course, he'll have to try and drop out of the dirty air. But it's a difficult position for him because then he'll drop into the clutches of George Russell.
Yeah, the battle then ongoing throughout the grid, but at the front it is still a 1.3 second advantage in the favour of Max Verstappen, and that was the last thing Lando Norris needed, wasn't it? As we start lap 5 of 72, Norris has started, the 6 times Norris has started from that position. He's lost the lead every single time, and that is a major factor here. He's still keeping him within sight. Do you think there's an element of managing that gap because Norris was so quick on Friday?
Yeah, that Max is clever. Max is switched on. He knows, he'll know the numbers. He'll know the race pace of the other drivers around him, other teams around him. So they'll be on top of that for sure, and he won't want to take too much out of his tyres, but likewise to Lando Norris. It's a juggle, as I've said already. Do they try and attack, or do they go, okay, we'll sit back a little bit. Let's not sit in the dirty air. We know we've got the better race pace compared to the Red Bulls. So the gap stands at the moment 1.4 seconds. There's battles further down the field. Piastri's 0.8 off the back of Russell. Leclerc now, he's joined this battle. We've almost got a little bit of a DRS train. Piastri is at the front of that behind Russell, then Leclerc in 5th, Perez in 6th, and then a little bit of a gap. Pierre Gasly is hanging on there in 7th place, 1.6 seconds off Perez, but he's under pressure from Fernando Alonso.
Lap 6 of 72, Verstappen, that gap around about 1.2 seconds now. Norris in 2nd, then it's Russell, Piastri, Leclerc, the top 5. Perez is 6th, and there really is, as you say, Alice, that DRS train. Lap 6 of 72 at the Dutch Grand Prix, and after starting on pole, Lando Norris has lost the lead. Max Verstappen took it down the inside into turn 1 and already has an almost 1.5 second advantage. Still a long way to go in this race though, but it's advantage Verstappen. And we're just getting another look at Verstappen making the move down the inside into turn one. And really, though, Alice, it was all on the start.
Yeah, actually, interestingly, starting on the left-hand side of the grid from driver's point of view, which is pole position side, there's a crest just on, and we're getting another replay of it now. He just got too much wheel spin. That pure and simple, that's what it was. And there is a crest right on the grid box on the right-hand side of the cars that line up to on the left-hand side. Pierre Gasly we can listen to now, who also got a bit of wheel spin. So I wonder whether Lando just crept ever so slightly onto that crest in the circuit there, because again, we've seen it in the support races. Some of the drivers that have started on the left-hand side have also struggled a little bit just because of that crest in the circuit. And actually, when you go out onto the track, onto the grid, you can see where the F1 cars have grinded a bit on the top of the crest. And so that's probably played a little bit of a part in Lando's poor start, but at the same time not enough rear tyre temper, maybe slipping that clutch a little bit too quickly. As Kevin Magnussen, we've seen the Hatters take a venture into the gravel quite often this weekend, and Kevin's added to that tally. He runs wide, locking up into turn one. Max Verstappen, though, Harry, gap now 1.8 seconds.
Yeah, Magnussen locking up into Tarzan. His teammate Hulkenberg has been going off all weekend. Verstappen on the radio.
It's good, Max, keep it up. Just watch that rear left sliding.
He's been told by his engineer, Jean-Pierre Lambiasi, to watch that rear left sliding, just managing the tyre degradation. Just over 1.5 seconds now is the gap between Verstappen and Lando Norris as we approach the end of lap 7 of 72. Rosanna, I'm sure the roar from the fans was absolutely huge when Verstappen took the lead.
It was incredible at the start, and let me tell you, Harry, it just keeps on happening every time he goes past the grandstand on the start-finish straight. The cheering is amazing, and it's the same on the other side, because where the media pen is, there's another big grandstand where all, of course, his fans are, and they cheer every time he goes past them. So it's a continuous cheer that you hear at the moment. And just a word on the conditions, those big clouds have sort of moved away a bit, so a lot more blue sky over the circuit, a lot more sunshine, and so it's feeling a little warmer too. That may well help things.
Thanks, Rosanna. Lap 8 now, 72. Verstappen, Norris, Russell, Piastri, Leclerc. That's the top 5 in this race. And really, it's the top 4 who are all a little bit distilled. And then comes the race. Leclerc is 7/10 behind Piastri. Make that 6/10. And then you've got Perez. Then it's a little bit more between himself and Gasly, who's providing to be the cork in the bottle right now. Sainz right up behind Gasly. Can't find a way through at the moment. He's an 8. Alonso is 9th. Stroll rounds out the top 10. Then it's Hulkenberg in 11th. Hamilton 12th. Tsunoda 13th. Bottas, Ricciardo lines up in 15th. Ocon is 16th ahead of the 2 Williams of Albon and Sargent.
Who we are racing? We think it's just Max.
I think we're racing whoever we think. The car ahead.
That was Lando Norris being asked, who are we racing, do you think? And Norris replying, we're racing whoever the car ahead is. That is Max Verstappen right now as the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz has a little look at Pierre Gasly's 7th place coming through Tarzan. Can't quite find a way through here. Both taking that higher line through the banked turn 3. Sainz just struggling to find a way through, though, on the Alpine of Pierre Gasly, who's having an excellent run of it. A lap or so ago, Sainz made a lovely move round the outside of his fellow Spaniard, Fernando Alonso, through Tarzan, and managed to get himself up into 8th spot, but he's now chasing down still Gasly in 7th. Lap 9 of 72 then. Let's head over to 5 Live Race Control. BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. How are you making out these first 9 laps?
Well, it's an interesting little race at the moment. I think it's basically Verstappen against Norris. I think this is what Will Joseph, Lando Norris's engineer, was implying, because George Russell's not really had their pace since the start of the race. He's dropping back consistently. It's nearly 3 seconds now. Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez are kind of bottled up behind him at the moment. Norris is holding Verstappen. So it looks like Verstappen's pulled away, but it's only 1.5 seconds. And if he can stay within 1.5 seconds, that suggests he's got good pace, because the airflow of the cars gets quite badly disrupted when you're running behind. The only question is, what can he do about it? Because Norris's tyres will wear quicker than Verstappen's. We're only expecting 1 stop. So really McLaren somehow have to pull something at the stop and get Norris ahead of Verstappen if they're going to try and win this race. It's just a question of how they do that.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Lewis Hamilton has just made up a spot into 11th place, getting Hülkenberg, although Hamilton has just said on the radio, I'm too slow on the straights, having then made the move on Hülkenberg at the end of the main straight. Equally, that battle still brewing between Pierre Gasly in 7th and Carlos Sainz in 8th. Gasly, Alice, is driving a superb race in these early stages.
Yeah, he is. He's keeping it consistent, not leaving, making any mistakes, leaving the door open. So he's doing a good job. I'm quite surprised, though, Lewis Hamilton on that soft tyre has not been able to make many moves forwards. He's gained 3 places, but he would have had much better grip at the start compared to those on the medium tyre. So he'll certainly be disappointed with the pace, not able to move forward. I'm expecting Gasly now to lose a place to Carlos Sainz. He dives down the inside. Gasly's going to try and hold it round the outside. Just about. He's going to have the outside again, though, for turn 2, and then he has to concede the place. So very close to touching there. Maybe there was a little bit of tyre smoke I saw there, Harry. So hopefully both cars escape with any punctures.
Lovely driving, though. Lovely racing between Carlos Sainz and Pierre Gasly. Just about giving each other room, going wheel to wheel, and in the end, through turn 3, the left-hander of Hugenholtz, that huge banked corner of 19 degrees. Sainz getting the move done finally after a tough weekend so far. He set it up on the main straight, and actually it carried so much speed, almost caught Gasly right up into turn 1, just avoided hitting the rear end of that Alpine. Then they went side by side through turn 2. Then it kinks to the right before you're straight into the braking zone for Hugenholtz of turn 3. Sainz carrying more speed, more momentum, the higher line, and the Ferrari driver gets through and gets the place off of the Frenchman. Sainz 7th, Gasly 8th. Then the 2 Aston Martins of Alonso and Stroll rounding out the point scoring positions, but for how much longer? Because Lewis Hamilton is now hunting down Lance Stroll. Stroll and Hamilton both with DRS available. Hamilton closes up under braking, but has to just hold on behind the Canadian, and Alonso isn't too far up the road either. Hülkenberg just behind Hamilton in 12th.
It's interesting here because Alonso seems to be struggling with pace, and actually he's almost backed his teammate now into Lewis Hamilton. 7/10 is the gap between Stroll and Alonso, and only half a second between Hamilton and Stroll. So maybe it seems, Andrew, that Alonso is not too happy on this medium tyre.
Maybe, or maybe he's deliberately doing it to give Stroll the DRS to protect him against Hamilton, which therefore protects Alonso against Hamilton. It could be that as well. Remember the Singapore race last year?
Yeah, the clever driving from Sainz.
Thought on plan A versus plan B?
I think plan A.
Copy that.
That's Tom Stallard on the radio to Oscar Piastri, plan A or plan B. Piastri saying, well, I think plan A. So too, Charles Leclerc a few moments ago also said they were going to stick on to plan A, which I think we could presume is a traditional one-stop strategy. Lap 13 of 72. Lap 13 of 72, Verstappen still leads this race, having taken the lead from Lando Norris into turn 1 on lap 1. He now leads by a second. Russell is third. Piastri and Leclerc round out the top 5. Lewis Hamilton, who started down in 14th, has so far recovered up to 11th. Still outside the points, though. We haven't yet seen the first of the pit stops. Expecting a one-stop. Still a long way to go in this one. And as I say that, first of the pit stops happens, and it's Alex Albon who, after I think a bit of a fight with the FIA from starting on the grid, that's what they wanted to do. The FIA were hoping they might be able to start from the pit lane with all the changes made after the disqualification of that car after qualifying. Well, he's come into the pits first and dropped all the way down to 20th and last, and he has switched onto the hard compound of tyre for Alex Albon. So that's a switch from the medium to the hard on lap 13.
Probably plan A. Plan B might be a way to beat Max.
Yeah, I think pace is strong.
So Norris saying, yeah, I think this pace is strong, but plan B might be the one to beat Max. He is now, though, Alice, within a second of Verstappen is Lando Norris.
He is. He's doing a great job. And actually, we heard Max's engineer say to him, look after that left tyre. Majority of the corners around here, you're turning right. And so the left tyre takes a real beating as Lewis Hamilton's now finally made his way through and past Lance Stroll. He'll be on the hunt now to Fernando Alonso. So I wonder here if Max is struggling with that rear left tyre. Gap now is 7 tenths.
Oh, doesn't turn at all in 10. Understood.
So it's understeer.
Turn 10 as well. That leads you on to the DRS zone, which is not good news because Norris, or depending on when he managed to get into the activation zone, will he get the DRS? He's now outside of a second. No, he won't get it. But as he comes into the DRS zone, he dips under a second. But Norris is closing on Verstappen as they make their way through the right-hander of 11, then the left-hander of 12, and the run down to the final two corners that see off a lap of this Zandvoort circuit, turn 13, and you get a huge amount of banking once again through turn 14, 18 degrees that propels you out onto the start-finish straight as we start lap 15 of 72 for the Dutch Grand Prix. Lando Norris, who started on pole position but lost the lead of the race before we even got into turn 1 to Max Verstappen. Is it coming back now to Lando Norris? Has he been better on his tyres? Has he got the better strategy? Verstappen has the advantage on track for now, but Norris could be closing here. Meanwhile, further back in the pack, pit stops from Hülkenberg and Tsunoda as they both come in from outside of the points. Lewis Hamilton continues his charge up the field. He's now through on Stroll and battling to try and close up to Fernando Alonso to take 9th place away from the Spaniard, but that battle still ongoing.
The good thing for Max, he's struggling in turn 10. That's not obviously the good thing for him, but that's at the part of the circuit where it is hardest to follow around here. That section just as you enter into sector 2, which starts from just before turn 7 and then all the way through to turn 10. Quite some high speed corners there. Medium speed corner is turn 10, but still you can stretch your legs from the car behind through 7, 8 and 9. As understeer and following in that dirty air plays a big part, and that's what's helping Verstappen at the moment. So Norris is quicker in the first sector. He has the aid of a little bit of a tow, no DRS. He's not in that zone. He still hasn't got DRS available to him, but he's able to then catch up in that first sector 1, and then Verstappen is able to open up the gap ever so slightly once again into sector 2 and through sector 2. So that's what's saving Max at the moment, and he'll know I've got to get my exit out of turn 12 because that is where the DRS detection zone is for when they can use DRS on the exit of turn 13.
Lap 16 of 72. It is now still again within a second, 8/10 of a second to be precise, between Verstappen and Norris up front. Russell is then a little bit on his own in third. Piastri's under pressure from Charles Leclerc. That's the battle for 4th and 5th. Then Perez not able to get within a second of the Ferrari in front of him. Perez is currently 6th and he's got Carlos Sainz behind him, with about 4 seconds between the Mexican and the Spaniard. Then Gasly still holding on to 8th, but now will trouble come for the Frenchman in the Alpine because Lewis Hamilton has just overtaken Fernando Alonso and is now up into 9th. Alonso now down in 10th. And in that final point scoring position, then comes Stroll, Ricciardo, Ocon, Sargent, Magnus in the top 15. Battle for the lead though ongoing. He's within the DRS zone. Down to turn 1. Verstappen defends the inside line. Norris trying to attack, takes the wider line, sweeps back for the up and under, but Verstappen carries more momentum, manages to hold on to the lead of this race into the braking zone for the left-hander of turn 3. The banked corner spits you out to the roller coaster ride that we go through 4. Then it arcs left through 5 before you're greeted by a slow double right-hander of turn 6 and 7 as we get into the middle section of this Zandvoort circuit. Norris is coming for Max Verstappen.
Really bad last sector.
Yeah, my tyres are just numb. They don't grip. Yeah, copy that, man.
So Max struggling with the tyres, but he had a really bad last sector, which starts just before turn 11. So it's quite a short sector, one of the shortest on the track. So he must have made a mistake or just purely struggling with the car there as they funnel through now into the final sector, into turn 11. And Lando's looking pretty close. 6/10 is the gap. DRS now it will be available to Lando Norris on the exit of turn 13. DRS is wide open, Harry, as they go onto the straight. Max is going to have to defend. He's going to have to defend quite early.
Let's see what he does. Oh, and Verstappen almost moves to the right a little too late. Norris down the inside into into Tarzan. Retakes the lead of this Grand Prix. Norris back in front, having started from pole position and lost to the lead going into turn 1 on lap 1. Norris and the McLaren back out in front on lap 18. Verstappen tried to defend. It almost ended in absolute heartbreak, but they gave each other enough room. Verstappen now chasing Norris, but Verstappen with troubles of his own.
Yeah, he thought about it, he jinked, but it wasn't early enough, was it? And Lando jinked even more to avoid the Red Bull down the straight. He had the benefit from the DRS, of course, and slightly toe, and we're seeing the closing speed was just so great. Sparks flying out the back. But I wonder if Max is thinking here, do you know what, I've got the long game. You know, I haven't got the car here, haven't got the tyres, so maybe he thinks it's not worth me losing time fighting with Lando Norris.
It nearly ended very badly there, though, with Verstappen just jinking to the right a little too late. Norris saw it coming, and there was enough room in the end. Norris back in the lead. Lap 18 of 72, Lando Norris is back into the lead of the Dutch Grand Prix with a fantastic move down the start-finish straight to down the inside of Max Verstappen. Verstappen still very much with Norris, but it's lap 19 of 72. Norris, who started from pole, lost the lead into turn 1, back out in front.
What's the plan from here?
And how are the tyres?
I think okay, mate. They feel pretty reasonable. I'm consistent, so. Well, Lando, we think just plan A. We think plan A. He might try the undercut, but that's cool. Plan A.
Plan A for Lando Norris. He might try the undercut, referring to Max Verstappen now behind Norris. But that's cool, according to Will Joseph, Lando Norris's race engineer. And Norris sounding much more relaxed now he's out in front and has got clear air in front of him. The gap is going up. It's still within a second, but it was half a second. Now up to 0.8 of a second. Norris leads. Verstappen, Russell, Piastri, Leclerc, the top 5. Andrew Benson.
I was surprised how Max Verstappen didn't really defend that move. He moved a little bit on the straight to the right, but hardly at all. I would have expected him to go inside, make Norris work hard for it. I think Alice is right. I think he was thinking, I can't hold him back. I've got to bide my time and see if we can come back at him later in the race. He's coming through no matter what.
Well, he's still within that second, so he gets the DRS down the main straight again. So he's keeping Norris honest into turn 1. Half a second, the gap between Norris and Verstappen now. Russell third, Piastri fourth, Leclerc fifth. Then comes Perez down in sixth there to Sainz. Gasly is 8th, Hamilton 9th. Alonso rounds out the point scorers in 10th. Then it's Stroll, Ricciardo, Ocon, Magnussen, Sargent in 15th, Hülkenberg in 16th, who has pitted and is the first of the pit stoppers. Tsunoda also pitted in 17th. Albon, Bottas and Zhou rounding out the 20th driver field.
Also worth pointing out that McLaren radio message. Here's another one.
It felt like my brakes are going long, but I feel like there's a lot more wind all of a sudden. Okay, we're checking now.
So Norris is a little bit worried about his braking distances there, but there is a very, very strong tailwind down the pit straight, so it may well be that. He may be right. Anyway, back to the radio message before from Will Joseph, his race engineer. That smelled of huge confidence to me, Alice. It's like, but basically what they were saying is he might try the undercut. That means he might pit first and get the de facto lead again, because you pit first, you gain from the fresh tyres. That will put Norris behind Verstappen again. Will Joseph is saying, we don't care. We can still beat him, even if he gets ahead of us again. That's massive confidence in a car around Zandvoort.
Yeah, it certainly is, and they clearly have the confidence. Lando Norris, by the way, has now broken the DRS. Max, I was just looking at his sectors here, was actually setting personal best, set to set his best lap of the race just 1 lap ago, but obviously is not able to keep his Red Bull within DRS zone of Lando Norris, so disappointment there. And Lewis Hamilton now has caught up the back of Pierre Gasly, gap just 0.3 of a second.
Brakes wise, everything fine from our side. Yeah, it's okay. I think it's sweet.
Yeah, I think it is, and when we spoke about it, didn't we, before the race, that's going to play a part. And almost with these gusts of wind, it does give you a sense in the cockpit when you do have something unexpected. You're like, oh, hang on a second, is this the car or is just the wind? So they would have spoken about the wind. Well, they would have been stood on that grid and felt the wind before they would have stepped into the car.
Battle for 8th place happening right now between Pierre Gasly and Lewis Hamilton, who is making his way up the field on the soft tyre gave him that extra bit of grip at the start of this race, but how much will that tyre wear out? It will wear quicker than the medium or the hards. Hamilton 0.7 of a second behind Gasly, so within DRS. He tries to apply the throttle coming out of turn 10. Just the rear end not quite biting enough for Hamilton to close up to Gasly on that front. Gasly, who stood on the podium here last year after Perez was given a 5-second time penalty. Gasly so far having an absolutely brilliant race, qualified in 9th and up into 8th, but he has got strong competition now behind him. Hamilton is right up behind him within a 10th of a second now. Further up the field, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari has been stuck behind Oscar Piastri for quite some time. Now I think we might have expected, based on Lando Norris, that Piastri would be able to carve through the field. Lost a position at the start. Leclerc was within DRS about half a second behind Piastri.
It's an impressive race from Leclerc. He's not been that optimistic about his hopes all weekend. He thought 6th on the grid was as good as he was ever going to get. He said he was hoping earlier today that he might be able to follow the cars in front, but he wasn't really expecting to be able to do so. So to be able to stick with a McLaren like this, to keep it under real pressure, and George Russell just in front of him as well, Ferrari will be really pleased with Leclerc's drive here.
Yeah, and his teammate Carlos Sainz, having started, qualified initially outside of the top 10, promoted into 10th. Sainz is up into 7th, about 3 seconds adrift from Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, who is occupying 6th spot. Here we go then, battle for 4th. Piastri defends the inside of turn 1. Leclerc takes the outside line, then tries to swing back on the inside, but Piastri carries more momentum. The Australian in his 2nd season with McLaren under pressure for 4th place in this race. Charles Leclerc showing a magnificent turn of form in what has been really a bit of an anonymous weekend for Ferrari, both struggling in short and long run pace, but right now Leclerc putting on a superb effort as Ferrari try and continue to fight for the constructors. Further back, just seeing a replay of Lewis Hamilton, who's still fighting with Pierre Gasly, trying to move down the inside into turn 1, Alice, and Gasly was having none of it.
Yeah, it made me jump back in the seat because they were very close to contact on the edge there. Gasly, we saw earlier on in the race, he was able to hang it round the outside, and he has done that once again. Oscar Piastri's got a little bit of breathing space now from Charles Leclerc, but he's still very much in touching distance, and he will have the DRS when they go onto the main straight. Piastri's really fallen into the grasp of Leclerc because he's lost the DRS from George Russell, which would have been essentially pulling him along.
I tell you what as well, Lando Norris is absolutely streaking away at the front of the field. He's pulled more than half a second a lap on Max Verstappen for the last 3 laps.
Well, the battle for 4th, though, still continues with the other McLaren. Piastri still just about keeping that papaya car ahead of the Scarlet Red Ferrari.
Car doesn't respond to my inputs.
That was Verstappen saying, I can't go faster, the car doesn't respond to my inputs, as Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes comes in for his pit stop, gets rid of the soft tyre, and we'll see what he comes out with. I think it's the hard it is. It's the white wall tyre to the end then for Lewis Hamilton on the hard tyre. That would be the presumption. He's just feeding out. He should be ahead of Yuki Tsunoda in 15th spot. No, Tsunoda just gets ahead of him, so Hamilton out in 16th then, but on fresher rubber than the Japanese driver ahead of him. Lap 24 of 72, Norris leads by almost 4 seconds. Now Verstappen in 2nd and struggling with his car. Russell is 3rd, Piastri holding on to 4th for dear life, but Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari is well and truly applying the pressure. Sergio Perez is behind Leclerc in 6th, then comes Sainz, Gasly, Alonso and Stroll the top 10. Ricciardo is 11th, followed by Magnussen, then comes Ocon, Hülkenberg, Tsunoda is 15th, Hamilton who's just pitted and come out in 16th, as Charles Leclerc now comes in for his first pit stop, hits his marks outside the Ferrari garage and away he goes. Nice work from the team there to get him out, serviced 2.4 seconds.
Yeah, nice clean stop from Ferrari. All eyes will be now not just on Charles Leclerc. Those are the teams that haven't pitted will be looking at the times from Lewis Hamilton as well, because they're bleeding out on the hard tyre. Charles Leclerc on the hard tyre too. George Russell has now got the call to box, so that's going to potentially free Oscar Piastri to put in some good laps. He's going to really have to turn it up in order to in order to try and get ahead of George Russell. He's got a nice buffer from behind. Sergio Perez is the next car behind him, 3.4 seconds. But as Andrew said, Lando Norris is streaking away, and Charles Leclerc, already on the hard tyre, is enjoying them quite nicely. He's probably going about to set the best middle sector of anyone in the race so far.
As the Mercedes crew get ready, by the looks of it, for the other Mercedes of George Russell. Rosanna, he's just coming into the pits now.
He just hit his braking marks and he's into his pit box. The mechanics are ready to receive him up on the jacks. The tyres come off and the hard tyres go on. This is interesting, guys. Pirelli didn't have medium tyre as the potential race start tyre anywhere, really, in their pre-race predictions. But if you read a little further down, they suggested it would last until around lap 27 to 33. That was a 3.4, quite slow stop for Mercedes. So would that suggest, guys, that tyre degradation is a little bit worse than Pirelli and the teams were expecting?
No, it suggests that Pirelli's strategy predictions are always wrong, Rosanna. I'm afraid that's just the way it is. You look at those and you think, well, that's the first strategy. That's not what it's going to be. It's going to be something else. Medium hard, I think, was always going to be the favoured, most likely strategy for everybody, and that's exactly how it's playing out.
Okay, you got clear air now. Plan A target +5. Let's go.
Clear air for Oscar Piastri is told as George Russell comes into the pits and is back out again. Russell managed to get back out just behind Alonso and ahead of Stroll. So Russell in 9th spot, and he's right on the back of Alonso as they make their way through turn 10. Indeed, he gets the inside line and is way quicker than Alonso. Much better traction out of the corner, and up into 8th spot goes George Russell. Leclerc up into 7th, having also pitted. Leclerc and Russell now on the hard tyre. Lando Norris leads the race by 5.7 seconds to Max Verstappen. Then comes Oscar Piastri. Perez is 4th. Carlos Sainz up into 5th. Gasly behind him. Then it's Russell, Leclerc, Alonso and Stroll who round out the top 10, as we're just getting a look at a nice move from Charles Leclerc, getting himself ahead of the Aston Martin after his pit stop. Back on track, Leclerc running extremely well in this race for Ferrari, who aren't and haven't been on the pace compared to their competitors in the early part of the season, as they have been in the last couple of races. Lewis Hamilton just making his way back up the field after the first of his pit stops. Started on the soft tyre, now on the hard. He's just got through on Esteban Ocon for 14th place, and now has the two Haas drivers ahead of him. But you have to say, Alice, this has been a great turnaround for Lando Norris up front.
Yeah, no, it certainly has. He just sounds so calm, so cool as Red Bulls stream out now, and that is for Max Verstappen. He comes in nicely, slams on the brakes, hits the pit stop limiter, and in he goes.
Yeah, Rosanna, you've got eyes on it.
Yeah, he's the first garage you come to in the pits. He puts the hard tyre on, so he's pitted first. Is the undercut powerful around here, guys? Is this going to benefit Max Verstappen and Red Bull?
It could
2.5 stop.
Thanks, Rosanna. Yeah, it's a decent stop. It could be powerful, but with the rate that Norris is going at, will he be able to make any kind of inroad? Verstappen now just coming out of the pit lane now. Where is he going to feed out? He should be ahead of the Alpine of Pierre Gasly. He is indeed. Verstappen now on the hard tyre and in 5th spot as George Russell sets the fastest lap time. We'll see if McLaren feel the need to respond, but after we heard those messages on the radio not too long ago from his engineer Will Joseph, it doesn't even seem like they are particularly worried. Such is the confidence within their team. It's McLaren who lead this race 1 and 2. There's 12 seconds between them.
Well, I know we're going to box this lap to cover, suggesting coming down 1. Happy?
So they are going to cover, Andrew.
It makes sense. Why take the risk? He's got so much pace, keep track position, control the race from the front, job done.
And into the pits he comes, Rosanna.
Oh, I hope this is the right decision for McLaren. We've said before, haven't we, that they get it wrong a couple of times. He's in the pits, it looks a little slow. Something happened there. It was a 3.1 stop. That was not clean for McLaren.
Slightly slow, wasn't it? I think one of the rear tyres, I hope they were going to look at it. 3.1 seconds, as you say, Rosanna. Where is Norris going to feed out? Piastri leads this race. Perez second now. Sainz third. They have all yet to pit. Norris feeds out in 4th. Verstappen still behind, and the gap about 5 seconds between them now. So it's not the end of the world for Lando Norris. They had the gap, but a slightly slow pit stop is, Alice, always going to give you a little bit of a nervous reaction.
Yeah, no, it certainly will, but it wasn't too slow. We saw a slower one from the Mercedes crew, so that's all good. Lando Norris has got a nice buffer still, so he'll be fairly happy with that. Max Verstappen will still desperately try and chase him down, so just having a look at the microsectors on the timing screen, and no personal best really from either driver at the moment. We're having a look at a replay of Charles Leclerc, who's going to quite easily breeze past Pierre Gasly down into turn 1. Pulls comfortably back over to the left-hand side of the track. Lewis Hamilton, he's making moves forward. He just goes past one of the Haas cars. That'll be Nico Hülkenberg, I'm presuming. And he is funneled out in front of Nico Hülkenberg.
Perez comes into the pits as well, so that puts Sainz up into second. The top two in this race are Piastri and Sainz, but they have yet to pit, and it's a really slow stop on Sergio Perez's car. It's 4.4 seconds. He's fed back out into the fast lane, but that is going to cost the Mexican as he comes out also on the hard tyre, a man who has clung on to that Red Bull seat at least for a few more races, showed slight improvement in qualifying, but in the race so far hasn't been a match for Verstappen or the cars around him, as Hamilton making more moves down the main straight into Tarzan. That's turn 1, the right-hander, and he gets through. I think that was on the Haas of Kevin Magnussen. So Hamilton back up into 11th. Remember, Hamilton started this race down in 14th after a penalty. Started on the soft tyre and is trying to have a bit of a race of recovery. Meanwhile, I know every time we see images of Pierre Gasly, it's him being overtaken. I'm still quite impressed by the race Gasly is having for Alpine at the moment, as we just get another replay of Russell getting through on the Frenchman into turn 11. Yeah,
Russell lost 2 seconds, and I was just looking at the times thinking, where did he lose that? And that replay has answered my question. He was tucked up fighting with Pierre Gasly. Sainz has now been called into the box, so that promotes Norris up into P2 quite comfortably. He's 8 seconds behind his teammate Oscar Piastri, who's still circulating on the medium tyres, so yet to stop. A nice clean stop from the Ferrari crew there, 2.6 seconds for Carlos Sainz. That's quite rare that we see issues with Red Bull and their pit stops. They're usually full on form. I know they'll be really disappointed with losing a couple of seconds with that one. And who is that? Is that Sergio Perez comes up quite close to Carlos Sainz coming out of the pits there, but Sainz has to slot in behind the Red Bull driver.
Yeah, also into the pits, Stroll and Ocon from a little further back as well. Stroll with a 2.7 second stop. Ocon having not as strong a race as his teammate Gasly, who was still holding strong up in 6th. Gasly yet to pit. Piastri yet to pit, leads this race by just over 6.5 seconds for McLaren. Lando Norris effectively the net leader. Then it's Verstappen on the road at the moment in 3rd. Leclerc 4th ahead of George Russell. So that has worked out quite nicely for Charles Leclerc. Russell is 5th. Gasly holding on in 6th. Then comes Alonso in 7th. He is also yet to pit, but he just gets picked off by Sergio Perez on fresher rubber into turn 11. So Perez is now 7th. Alonso is 8th, but I think he's about to lose that as well. He will do, because Carlos Sainz is right behind him, but Alonso is called to come into the pits from 8th place, so that will allow Sainz up into 8th. Hamilton then on the fringes. Magnussen, who started from the pit lane, has worked his way up into 11th. Then it's Hülkenberg, Tsunoda, Albon, Bottas 15th, ahead of Stroll, who's just come out of the pits in 16th. Ricciardo is 17th, Sargent 18th, Ocon down in 19th, and Zhou Guanyu 20th and last.
Stop there from Fernando Alonso. As producer Paddy turns up my mic, thank you very much. 2.6 seconds for Alonso there. He's going to funnel out. Who's he going to be near? One of the Kick Saubers. It's going to be a race out of pit lane for Fernando Alonso. He has a little look in his mirror. Doesn't quite able to come out in front of Bottas, it was, but he is out in front of his teammate. And that Aston Martin certainly did look like a handful there on the medium tyre. He'll be glad to have got rid of those. And we're just going to check a replay of Sergio Perez throwing it down the inside of Fernando Alonso just before he went into the pit. So Oscar Piastri is yet to box, along with Pierre Gasly and Kevin Magnussen as well.
Indeed. I'm just having a look at the Ferrari lap times, as we see Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen doing battle in what looked like a little bit of an orchestrated manoeuvre with Hulkenberg now in front of Kevin Magnussen as Pierre Gasly is finally called into the pits along with Oscar Piastri. I just think this is turning into quite a good race for Ferrari, particularly Charles Leclerc. Okay, their qualifying pace was nothing to write home about whatsoever, but so far their race pace certainly providing a little bit of optimism for the team. Andrew?
He's going to be third after the pit stops. The only question is Piastri, who's running really long on these medium tyres. The obvious idea is to give him a tyre offset against the cars around him. The problem is he's going to come out at the back of the group of Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc and Russell. So he's lost a place effectively, and another to Russell and another one to Leclerc. So Leclerc is the big winner from this pit stop period at the moment, and Piastri's coming into the pits for his stop, Harry.
He certainly is. Into the pits, Rosanna Tennant is there.
Yeah, they're just waiting for Oscar. The rear jackman swings the jack round and lifts the McLaren up. It is a quick stop for them. The hard tyre goes on the Australian's car, and it's a 2.4 stop time as he filters back out into the fast lane of the pit lane. We've got a new race leader again, Lando Norris, back on top.
Back into the lead. I made it sound like you were part of the team there, Rosanna, I think.
Well, I think she should get involved.
You're on the rear left.
They do not want me in their pit stop room.
Rosanna Tennant there for us alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, the British racing driver, Alice Power, the BBC's F1 correspondent, Andrew Benson. It's lap 34 of 72 of the Dutch Grand Prix, the first race back from Formula One summer break. We have 10 races to go until the end of the season, and having lost the lead at the very start of this race, did Lando Norris, to Max Verstappen, he has now regained the lead and some. Looking very strong indeed for Norris in the McLaren, who now has a 6/10 gap over his teammate. It's now Norris ahead of Verstappen, back again as his teammates just come into the pits. We're just getting a little replay there of Gasly, who's been having a brilliant run of it so far, Alice, but it's just had a bit of a worrying pit stop.
Yeah, one of the mechanics was trying to make a front wing adjustment on the front right of Gasly's car, but Gasly obviously got the green light to release the clutch and to leave his box when the mechanic was still trying to make the change. So that was nearly a hand loss for one of the Alpine mechanics, who managed to react and move, and actually Gasly was having a little look in his mirror to make sure the mechanic is okay. I'm sure he would have been on the radio too to double check in. So a close call for that mechanic down there at Alpine.
Yeah, and cost Gasly a little bit on track time, but he's come out in 12th ahead of the two Aston Martins and behind Albon, and indeed that has been noted by the race stewards as an unsafe release, so I would expect that to get escalated to under investigation. We'll bring you up to speed as and when that happens. Lap 35 of 72, Lando Norris leads the gap, 7.5 seconds between himself and Max Verstappen. Lando Norris on course to try and get his second win this season. It's hard to believe that his last win came in Miami, and he hasn't been able to follow that up so far, despite being the man that has been challenging Verstappen and challenging at the front end of the field.
Yeah, no, it's incredible, isn't it, that stat, but that touch wood, there's no curse of the commentator, at least Fernando Norris anyway, that could change. We have got a battle has resumed between Fernando Alonso and Pierre Gasly. Gasly doing a really good job compared to his teammate Esteban Ocon. Didn't qualify quite as well, did Esteban, but he's down in 18th place, so having a bit of a struggle there. So up behind the Alpine is Fernando Alonso. He does though have the benefit of DRS, and as it stands at the moment, 3.9 is the gap for Gasly to Albon, so he's going to be sitting fairly vulnerable down this main straight. Of course, that battle is going to be with the Aston Martin, so I'd be surprised if he sort of doesn't put up a fight. I expect him to put up a fight, and Lance Stroll is keeping in touch there at the back of the field too.
And it's getting a little bit tasty further back in the pack between Valtteri Bottas and Daniel Ricciardo. It's a battle over 15th and 16th. No points on offer, but certainly pride, and it's the RB of Daniel Ricciardo. He gets the move done through Tarzan into turn 1 and is now up into 15th spot. Bottas down into 16th. It's lap 37 of 72. Norris leads Verstappen. Leclerc, who has made a gain, and up into 3rd. Good strategy call, good driving from Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari to get ahead of George Russell, who's been shifted down to 4th. Piastri having stayed out a little bit longer, has come out into 5th spot and just set the fastest lap time. Then it's Perez, Sainz, Hamilton, Hülkenberg, Magnussen rounds out the top 10. Magnussen started from the pits and is the only man yet to come in for a pit stop. Albon is 11th, Gasly 12th, ahead of Alonso and Stroll. Then comes Ricciardo up into 15th, Bottas, Sargent, Ocon at 18th, Tsunoda down in 19th, with Zhou Guanyu 20th and last. All 20 drivers still in this one.
Yeah, and no further action for Gasly, unsafe release. Just having a look though, the tail end of the field is about to get lapped. Zhou will be the first one. Lando Norris will be approaching him, I'm expecting, in the near future at some point. Or is he already through? Next one will be Yuki Tsunoda. So he's got that to deal with, but he's not under too much pressure. 8.8 seconds, only 9 seconds in front of Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc then a further 6.2 behind Max Verstappen. Russell is edging ever so bit closer to the back of the Ferrari, and Stroll is under investigation now for speeding in the pit lane, and usually, unfortunately for Lance Stroll, that is a slam dunk, which is actually a shame because he's in for this battle really for the points if you're going to take out those that haven't stopped or have stopped earlier on. Which is Albon, Hülkenberg, Magnussen, Gasly and Alonso, and Stroll on fresher tyres. So I think that will be a penalty coming the way of Lance Stroll.
Yeah, a shame for the Canadian. We'll see what happens when that comes up on our timing screen. Stroll in his 80th start for Aston Martin this weekend. Best result here of 10th back in 2022. Hoping to follow that up with another points score here this weekend. Currently both Aston Martins, Alonso in 13th, Stroll just behind in 14th. Further up then, it's settled down slightly, but it feels like it's just brewing up to a pretty climactic finale. Maybe not so for the lead of this race. That very much is still going the way of Lando Norris. Almost 10 seconds the gap now between himself and Verstappen. Leclerc is a further 6 seconds back in 3rd. Then it's Russell, who actually has Oscar Piastri closing in on him, and Piastri will know what that car is capable of. He was disappointed with where he qualified. He couldn't get onto the front row and lock it out for McLaren. Didn't have the best of starts to this race either. Now finds himself behind Leclerc, behind Russell. He's not quite within that DRS zone of Russell, but he is closing.
Yeah, he'll be really disappointed with this, because that car, as you said, Harry, is fast, particularly the race pace, but he's just not been able to match his teammate. He has been behind Russell and tucked up for a long time behind George Russell. He's now right on the back of him and have the benefit of DRS. Catching is one thing, of course, overtaking is another. So he'll be hoping that he can funnel through quite quickly. We're having a look now at the replay of Lance Stroll coming in. He comes in quite hot, slams on the brakes, locks up. And yeah, I can tell by looking at that on board that he certainly was over the speed limit coming into the pit lane. So he has unfortunately received a 5-second time penalty, which will actually, Daniel Ricciardo's 4.7 behind. So if Lance gets a wriggle on, he might not change his position that much.
Further up, Piastri still closing in on Russell by quite some margin now, within half a second of the Mercedes driver. He'll get the DRS down the main straight. Russell looking in his mirrors. Does he move to the inside to defend? Yes, he does. Piastri will try and sweep round the outside through the right-hander of Tarzan. Can he carry more momentum? Yes, he can. Piastri through on Russell and up into 4th. Nice move from the Australian, and that's been coming for a couple of laps now.
Yeah, brave stuff from Oscar Piastri. He knew he was fast and knew he couldn't waste any more time sitting behind, because he can still get a podium here, Harry. He's actually got the fastest lap of the race. George Russell now is setting personal best, actually fastest overall microsectors as well. What's the scrap we've got going on here? That looks like
Albon, Gasly, Alonso, Magnussen, all fighting over 10th place pretty much, and toe-to-toe going through into Tarzan. It's Albon versus Gasly. Gasly wins that one out. Then comes the two Aston Martins. Alonso ahead of Stroll, and then we've got the RB of Daniel Ricciardo. But at one point, we were nearly 4 wide going down the start-finish straight. Gasly comes out on top, stealing that final points-paying position at the moment. But this is a fantastic scrap over 1 point.
Yeah, you saved me there, Harry. I was quite puzzled of what was going on out there at the moment. Yeah, thank you. You've always got my back. I know you have. A great job with Gasly. He got his elbows out and he had to make that move past Albon because he's now put a car in between him and Fernando Alonso. The gap is pretty big to Hulkenberg. 10 seconds is the gap now. The Gasly needs to try and close down to get to 9th place, and then Hulkenberg is 17 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. So Lewis Hamilton not under any pressure whatsoever. According to the statistics coming up on our screen, Oscar Piastri within striking distance, 3 laps. They reckon it's going to take for him to get on the back of Charles Leclerc. So a podium will be good for the McLaren driver who had a disappointing start to this race. Fernando Alonso flies through down the inside of Alex Albon. Now Stroll is having a little look. He's going to have a jink into turn 2, no room there. Is he going to have a look down the inside of 3? Not able to. Remember, he has got that 5-second penalty.
30 laps to go. Piastri's lapping 4 tenths quicker than Max Verstappen at the moment, and he's 10 seconds behind. Can he catch Verstappen for second?
I think it's possible. Yeah, we could get a McLaren 1-2. Andrew, certainly could.
It's just dangerous. Like, really dangerous.
That was Alex Albon just on the radio saying it's dangerous, just really dangerous, referring to we almost went 3-4 wide in that battle over 10th. Would you call that dangerous?
I mean, we didn't see... Has that doesn't sound very good, does it? I don't know if that was...
Did Magnussen just decide that wasn't his race to be in and back off really early in the braking zone? So is that maybe what Albon's referring to?
Wow, I mean, has he boxed again?
Yeah, because he has boxed again now, but that was because he started from the pit lane. So I wonder if that is what Albon was referring to.
Yeah, we didn't catch the start of that because suddenly there was a decent gap between all of them, and that's what caught me by surprise. All of a sudden they were all together, so maybe that's what Albon's sort of on about, but he's actually keeping up with Fernando Alonso, keeping him under pressure. Gasly's escaped. Now he's got nearly a 2-second buffer to Alonso, so Alonso's not in the DRS zone there, and yeah, I totally agree. Going back to the point that Andrew made, I think Piastri could potentially claw his way up to the back of Max Verstappen if he doesn't lose too much time behind Charles Leclerc. Yeah, and could and perhaps very well should, given the car that he has got underneath him, should be joining his teammate Lando Norris on the podium if they can all stay there. It's lap 43 of 72. The gap out front between Lando Norris, who leads this race, Max Verstappen in second, 10.5 seconds separates them. Then Leclerc is third, 1.8 seconds between himself and Piastri. Russell is in fifth. Then comes Sergio Perez, who is under pressure for 6th place. Carlos Sainz, who has just set the fastest lap, is all over the rear end of the second Red Bull, and this would be pain for Sergio Perez, who needs to be showing better form in the races to continue to hold on to that second Red Bull seat, although we've been saying that for a little while now, and he still always rocks up again in his Red Bull overall. So let's see how it fares at the end of the Dutch Grand Prix. 6th for Perez, 7th for Sainz. Hamilton is recovering into 8th, has now got a little bit of a gap to overcome between himself and Sainz, about 4.5 seconds. Then it's Hulkenberg in 9th. Gasly rounds out the top 10. They are your point scorers. Then comes Alonso in 11th. Stroll is 12th. Albon 13th. Ricciardo is 14th. And Esteban Ocon rounds out the top 15 ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Then it's Logan Sargent in the Williams 17th. Tsunoda is 18th. Magnussen down in 19th. And Zhou Guanyu 20th and last. All 20 drivers still within this one at lap 44 of 72. Wind gusts, Harry, talking about the wind, it's still blowing a tailwind down into turn 1. We're getting gusts of up to 45 to 50 kilometres an hour. So Lando touched on it many laps ago, that could be hindering his drive. It's lap 44 of 72. Lando Norris leads the race by 11 seconds to Max Verstappen. Leclerc is in third.
absolutely is flying. He's got 11.5 seconds between himself and Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc is currently in third. The British racing driver Alice Powers alongside me, calling all the action. It's lap 45 now, and it looks like it really is Norris's race to lose, but it wasn't that way at the start, was it?
No, it certainly wasn't. He was under huge amount of pressure as Max Verstappen got a better launch off the line, and he held his nerve into turn one, and he was almost streaking away, but that turned quite quickly, and we could be looking at, though, Harry, and McLaren won too, because Oscar Piastri has closed the gap to those podium paying positions.
He absolutely is. Charles Leclerc is having a good run of things at the moment, currently in third. Ferrari having a decent race compared to their qualifying, but Piastri is hunting down the Ferrari driver, so the battle for the podium positions very much still undecided. Crossy, lap 45 of 72, Norris still in the lead. Shall I say it's lap 45 of 72 again? It's Norris who leads the way. 11.5 seconds. Verstappen in second, Leclerc third, Piastri, Russell the top five. Here's Norris on the radio.
Gap to Verstappen is 10. Under a safety car, we think we would take it for a medium, come out behind him, and then you'd pass him. Happy?
Yeah, you sound maybe a little confident. I agree. I'll figure it out.
Okay, so that's Will Joseph reporting back to Lando Norris that if there was a safety car, they would pit because they feel they had the pace to overtake Verstappen if they fell behind him. But the confidence from earlier didn't quite seem there on that one, but Norris seems happy to go along with it for the time being, but they think there might be a safety car. At the moment, everyone's kept it clean. Could they still be keeping it clean in a few corners' time? Well, Perez and Sainz might decide this one. Sainz getting very close into Perez coming through turn one. Perez defending that position. Out through turn three they go in the run down through four. Then the slight left-hand kink of five brings you out over the crest through six. Downhill braking off camber to the right-hand side of turn seven as you then come back on yourself through the middle sector.
Yeah, Sainz is eager to get past Perez. I'm just having a look at the lap times. He's got Hamilton is the next car behind him, and Hamilton hasn't really got the pace to claw him in. So I think Sainz is safe with any attack from behind. But now, who's not safe is the other Ferrari, Charles Leclerc. He's got Oscar Piastri all over the back of him. Oscar is going to have DRS now, which flies open on the exit of turn 13. He's going to streak towards the rear end of that Ferrari. He's hoped that he's going to make it easy for him in Charles Leclerc, but I can guarantee he's likely not going to. Not quite close enough this time, closes the gap to half a second. Leclerc runs slightly wide though into turn one, and now Sainz, he's having a go, he's braving it all the way around the outside. Does he make it stick round Sergio Perez? Yes, he does, up into sixth place.
Nice move from Carlos Sainz. That's been coming for a while. Perez down to seventh, Sainz up into sixth. Sainz flying with the fastest lap as well, trying to then next close down George Russell, who's a few seconds up the road. Piastri still fighting with Charles Leclerc. He can't quite find a way through though. This could be quite crucial for McLaren when it comes to constructors' points as well. They are the closest to Red Bull at the moment. We do believe that fight is on. If Piastri can pass Leclerc, McLaren move to within 28 points of Red Bull in the constructors.
Not just constructors, Harry. Remember, Norris came into this weekend saying he still has hopes of being able to haul down Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship. That's a 78-point advantage in 10 races. Obviously, that's 8 points a race on average to overtake him before the end of the season, or at the final race of the season. Verstappen is currently second. That's only 7 points, although Norris could get the fastest lap. If Piastri can start beating Verstappen as well, if other drivers can start beating Verstappen as well as Norris, that's what McLaren and Norris need if they are going to have any faint hope of winning the Drivers' Championship.
Half a second now between Piastri and Leclerc. He just needs to be able to get onto the back of him and carry that momentum through one of the DRS zones. We've got one coming up for them. The next one will be on the rundown between turns 10 and 11, and then it's out onto the start finish straight, and it really propels you round those final double right hand corners that lead you onto 13 and 14. But they're approaching the first of the DRS opportunities now. Out through 10, Piastri will get the DRS, closes up to the back of Charles Leclerc, but Leclerc doesn't feel the need to defend. And the other thing they've got to note is that they've got traffic in front of them as well, in the form of the Williams, the Alpine and the RB. Who could that possibly play a factor round the final corner? DRS flies open for Oscar Piastri, swings out onto the main straight, trying to close up to the back of Charles Leclerc into the braking zone of turn 1, and we'll see how that one pans out. Because this is radio, they're not actually showing us how that overtake ended up, so I can't actually tell you. We're watching the battle for 13th at the moment. I think Leclerc held on. Rosanna Tennant.
I am in the pit lane, and Lewis Hamilton is as well. He hits his marks up on the jacks, and it's the soft tyre for the British driver. He's making his way out. Stop time of 2.6, Harry. Is he going to try and go for that fastest lap as well, do you think?
Quite possibly. We'll see.
Well, he's got to be in the top 10 to get it. And if that's going to drop him quite a long way down the field, I'm very surprised Hamilton's made a second stop. But it is the sort of kind of a standard 2-stop.
I think he will be within the top 10.
Oh, is he? Okay, sorry, I got that wrong, have I?
Yeah, he had a gap to Hulkenberg.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Sorry, ignore me.
No worries, Andrew. Hamilton 8th, Hulkenberg in 9th, Gasly 10th. Now bringing you back with that Piastri-Leclerc overtake. Well, there wasn't an overtake. Leclerc is still in 3rd. Piastri is in 4th. We sadly cut away just as that was getting interesting. There is a nice battle going on right at the back of the grid, but we're not too interested in that one. Sargent Tsunoda and Magnussen are racing it out over 16th, 17th and 18th. But what that does do is it provides traffic and dirty air for the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, who is approaching them now. So this could prove beneficial for Piastri, or indeed hinder them both as they come up towards them in that middle sector where it's very difficult to overtake. They will get blue flags, which means they have to get out of the way, but that's easier said than done for some of these drivers.
Yeah, first blue flag is for Magnussen, so he has got only a handful of corners where he needs to get past, release the cars behind, should I say, which he does. One thing I will like to say, Harry, is it could actually help Leclerc because he could get DRS from one of the lap cars. The next one in front of him,
Tsunoda.
Yeah, and is he going to be? Let's have a little look so that he could get the detection on the exit of 12. Let's have a look. No, I think he might be just out of it, so we'll wait and see. Oscar Piastri, let's have a look at the gaps. He's 8/10, so actually the gap's larger than what it was the previous lap. So no, Leclerc has not benefited from DRS from the car in front. Yuki Tsunoda has now got the blue flag, so he's going to have to concede. Yes, he does. He lets those two through and slots in without trying to lose a place to Magnussen. The next car up the road will be Sargent, who will get the blue flags very shortly.
Yeah, nice getting out of the way there from both Magnussen and Tsunoda. It's that 51 of 72. Norris still leads the race by almost 14 seconds to the Red Bull of Max Verstappen and Rosanna Tennant, hearing some rumblings that there might be a bit of movement down at the Red Bull garage.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird, Harry. The mechanics were running around with tyres. It was the soft tyres. They were coming back into the garage and putting them back in the tyre blankets. Sergio Perez is in P7, and there's a 25-second gap between him and 8th place runner Lewis Hamilton, who we just saw in the pit lane. Now it's a 23-second loss if you make a pit stop. So Perez does have a gap to pit, but it looks like Red Bull have decided not to do that with the Mexican driver, potentially going for a fastest lap. They've maybe let Lewis Hamilton have that, and he has set the fastest time now on that soft tyre.
Thanks, Rosanna. And Alice, Hamilton has just said it feels like the wind has picked up immensely.
Yeah, we were saying, weren't we, that the gusts have certainly increased, and actually those flags are fluttering a lot more in the wind down there, and I'm sure Rosanna's hair's not enjoying it either down in pit lane. Magnussen's now all the way on the back of Yuki Tsunoda and Logan Sargent. Logan ran slightly wide on the exit of turn 1 there, so that's made him even more vulnerable as he comes into turn 3. Manages to cover it off quite nicely, squirts on the gas, and that was where he spun off and had that huge accident in free practice 3. And actually, seeing that he smashed the car into many pieces and he missed qualifying, Williams team doing a great job repairing the car. He's actually not doing too badly.
No, he's down in 16th, having a nice little scrap with Tsunoda, Tsunoda's had a rough race out-qualified his teammate quite considerably, but it's Ricciardo who's having the better race right now, up into 13th, Tsunoda down in 17th. Magnussen, who started from the pit lane and always had an uphill battle, as Lando Norris just overtakes a little bit of traffic in the Aston Martin form of that was Lance Stroll, and got a little bit tight go through Tarzan there, but Stroll letting Norris through. Just to come back to Sargent and make you aware, obviously he had that big crash in free practice 3. There are now rumblings that he might well not see out the season in that Williams seat, having upset quite a few people. Williams bringing their biggest upgrade of the season to both cars, and Sargent doing so much damage, pretty costly for Williams, and to compound that, Andrew, with the disqualification as well for Albon.
Yeah, I think the worst thing about the Sargent accident was it wasn't like he crashed trying to go too fast through a corner. He basically just drove off the track in a straight line, onto the grass and then lost it. It was a really, really silly accident. Teams don't mind so much. Obviously, they always mind if you crash. But if you're really pushing the limits and you go off, it's kind of accepted. It's kind of your job in a way. But to do it in that way, with all those new parts on the car, okay, probably his floor may well have been illegal as well as Alex Albon's, but that's not the point. That's cost him an awful lot of money in a completely unnecessary way. And James Vowles, I can tell you, has been going around the paddock talking to other team bosses, wondering what drivers might be available to put in that car. Speaking to Toto Wolff at Mercedes and Christian Horner at Red Bull. Liam Lawson's in the frame there. Antonelli, who's looking likely to get a second Mercedes seat, has been for a while. He could be drafted in potentially. If it was me, I'd be going to talk to Aston Martin and looking at Stoffel Van Dorn.
I thought you were about to say if it was me being drafted in. Benson.
Get Benny in, let's go.
But anyway, Sargent is looking, it could even be by next weekend. We don't know for sure yet.
Stoffel Van Dorn would be an excellent shout. He's actually had some active testing with Aston Martin recently as their reserve driver, also been there with Mercedes as well, and during his Formula 1 time wasn't too far off Fernando Alonso when they were teammates at McLaren either. Van Dorn's still very much a figure in the paddock, but we'll see how that one plays out. Sargent is currently down in 16th spot. Lap 54 of 72. Norris still out in front by almost 15 seconds. Verstappen in second. Leclerc is sixth. Now, I'll tell you what, that's died down a little bit, hasn't it? That battle between Leclerc and Piastri. Piastri's fallen back by about 1.5 seconds now, and the one that's heating up in terms of battle is fifth. Russell is in that position at the moment, and he's got Sainz for company. Carlos Sainz was trying to make gains, having started this race in 10th. Didn't actually make it through into the final part of qualifying yesterday. Had a gearbox issue in one of the practice sessions as well. Very limited dry running for Sainz, and trying to make his way up through the field. And, actually he doesn't have to overtake Russell because he comes into the pits. Rosanna.
Yes, Russell is in the pit lane from P5. In he comes, not too far to travel down the pit lane. The tyres are off, the tyres are back on, and it's soft tyres for the British driver. A little bit quicker there, 2.8 stop time for George Russell, and he's back out into the fast lane. Where's he going to filter out, I wonder?
He should come out in front of his teammate, because there is quite a nice gap. Hamilton is in 8th, and Russell coming out now in the pit exit feeds out into the exit of turn 1, which he has now fed out into. Russell on the soft tyre into 7th, Hamilton 8th, Hülkenberg holding on to 9th. That's been a good run actually for Hülkenberg, if he can hold on to that for the Haas. 2 points, 2 valuable points for Hülkenberg and Haas. Gasly clinging on to the final point in 10th for Alpine. Outside of the top 10, it's Alonso and Stroll 11th and 12th, Ricciardo, Albon, Ocon the top 15, and then the battle still continuing for Sargent. Tsunoda in 16th and 17th. Magnussen's fallen a little bit off the pace, and it's the two Saubers having another woeful race. Bottas 19th, Joe 20th, the only team yet to score any points in this season of Formula 1. More action in the pits. Alex Albon coming in for a change of tyre, and that drops him back behind his teammate and just in ahead of the two Saubers. So what could have been for Alex Albon today, Alice, had the floor not been illegal?
Well, yeah, I mean, Williams weren't particularly happy. Andrew touched on that at the very start of the show that they said that their calculations are correct, but that's not matching up with what the FIA calculations are. So unfortunately, he got the boot from qualifying. Yeah, and that's really ruined his afternoon, hasn't it? Once you're stuck in that traffic, which, you know, Oscar Piastri is proving. He absolutely stormed up to the back of Charles Leclerc, but just hasn't been able to find a way past. He's still desperately trying to make sure he's in the DRS detection zone on the exit of 13, and he was out of it again, unfortunately for him. 1.1 seconds is the gap. We're riding on board with Oscar now.
How's the tyre now? Not amazing, but it'll make it to the end. Copy that.
Not amazing, but I'll make it to the end. When asked by his race engineer Tom Stallard how the tyres are, he's on the hard tyre and he's currently in 4th, 1.1 seconds off of Charles Leclerc. So I wonder if he was getting really close to Leclerc, but there comes a point where if you can't make the overtake, you're just sort of burning up the rubber that you have and causing yourself not to make the end of the race and have to have another pit stop.
Yeah, and you'll find drivers will sometimes try and adjust their lines ever so slightly to try and stay out of the dirty air. That's whether they turn in slightly later or slightly earlier, just to try and get a bit of fresh, clean air onto the front end of the car. He is slightly closer from the eye, but the lap time says no, or the up-to-date interval says that he isn't. There is some more traffic ahead, just trying to pick out who that might be. So you'll bring it up on your iPad. I'm sure, is it Esteban Ocon that's in front? Yes, so Leclerc will get the DRS benefit potentially from Esteban Ocon. Piastri, of course, will be hoping he gets hindered by the traffic ahead. But Lando Norris out in front, cruising along. 15 seconds is the gap. Charles Leclerc's dropping back from Verstappen, so it's all fairly spread out at the front end of the field.
Very surprising lack of pace from Mercedes today. They've won 2 of the last 3 races before this event. I don't think they expected this track to favour them particularly, and Lewis Hamilton was struggling for pace in qualifying even before he made a small error that stopped him getting into the top 10. George Russell qualified 4th. Okay, he was a bit of a log jam in the first part of the race with Piastri and Leclerc challenging him hard, but he's just made a second pit stop, Russell, for soft tyres, and I suppose it's possible he could catch Perez again. That's put him behind Perez, back into 7th place, behind Sainz as well, dropped him out of 5th place. He's now 14 seconds behind the Red Bull with just 14 or so laps to go. I don't think he's going to make that time up. So really surprising loss of form there from Mercedes.
And a turnaround is he's for Ferrari as well all of a sudden, who seem to have had the better of the Mercedes so far in the race. Leclerc still holding on to 3rd, but I'll tell you what, Piastri's just closed in again within a second in the last lap or so. Leclerc is 3rd, Carlos Sainz is in 5th, and Piastri really is in a bit of a Ferrari sandwich. There's 6 seconds between Piastri and Sainz, so a little bit more of a gap there, but Leclerc holding on for the time being. Just seeing last lap around, Piastri is the faster of the 2. Last lap around, a 1:15.4 for Leclerc, a 1:15.0 for Oscar Piastri, and actually it's Sainz who's quicker than both of them, a 1:14.5 for Carlos Sainz. So if Piastri's not careful, he'll have the other Ferrari for company perhaps before the end of the race with lap 59 of 72. It's going to be a tough one to call. That's the battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th, so the final spot on the podium. It looks pretty much sewn up between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. There's now 16 seconds between Norris and Verstappen. 2 friends off the track, rivals on it, and battling hard, but Norris seems to have this one in check for the time being. Yeah, lap 60 of 72. We're getting into the closing stages of this race, and well, it looks like Lando Norris is holding on here. 16 seconds is the gap between himself and Max Verstappen. There is a fight, though, for the final spot on the podium between Ferrari's Charles Leclerc and the McLaren of Oscar Piastri, and even Carlos Sainz and the other Ferrari closing in on them. Still a couple of things to be decided, but so far, this is going the way of Lando Norris and McLaren. And And this is the sound of Pierre Gasly down through the gears into the right-hander of 11, swings left through 12, chasing down Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas. Hülkenberg having a good race for the Haas team. Indeed, Hülkenberg started down in 12, swapped quite early on to the hard tyre and is so far making that one go the distance, but Gasly will have DRS, gets right under the rear wing of Hülkenberg, who dives to the inside of turn 1 to try and defend it. Hülkenberg will try and squeeze Gasly to the outside onto the rumble strip. Gasly puts his foot down. He is having that position from Hülkenberg and he's not taking no for an answer. Gasly up into 9th, Hülkenberg down to 10th.
Gasly's really had the confidence around the outside there at turn 1 in the race today. He's braved it round the outside when he's been attacked, and he's braved it round the outside when he's been attacking, and now he's going to have Lando Norris come up to him as he's going to be lapped. Hulkenberg has released Lando, and Lando now will have to be released by Gasly, but a really positive day from Gasly. You know, they came into the weekend, Alpine, wondering whether they will be able to get points, and well, so far Gasly is going to get them more than just 1 point. So a solid job by Gasly, as Lando has continued to stretch his lead. 16.7 seconds is the gap now. 32 laps on the tyre for Lando Norris. He's on the hard tyre. He makes use of all the curb on the inside of turn 12. Really got a hook on the curb to pull you around the corner. The very cambered corners we have here at Zandvoort. There is camber down at turn 12, which is where Charles Leclerc is now, and still getting his exits, nailing them every time out of 12, which will be frustrating Oscar Piastri, because don't forget, this is the fight for the final podium position with only 10 laps remaining.
Yeah, it certainly is indeed. And just to come back to Gasly, who's now up into 9th, that will be 2 points for him if he can stay there to the end. He hasn't scored a point since Austria 3 races ago, so that will be much needed points for Alpine, who've been going through some turbulent times at the moment, but are trying to find some settling in their way forward. New team principal Oliver Oakes at the helm. This his first weekend, and if he can finish it off with a nice point score for one of his drivers, I think that will be a solid start to his tenure at the helm of the team from Enstone. Gasly 9th, not so for Esteban Ocon, who's had a tough weekend all round, down in 14th place, and well, bit of no man's land really. 19 seconds off the back of Daniel Ricciardo, 9 seconds up the road from Alex Albon. 10 laps to go. Lando Norris leads this race, looking to win his second race and beat Max Verstappen on the Dutchman's home turf. The gap is almost 17 seconds. Leclerc is 3rd and looks like he's actually holding on for that final podium at the moment. Piastri just can't quite close enough. Indeed, last lap around was a 14.5 for Leclerc and a 1:14.8 for Piastri. So Leclerc actually finding a bit of time, and Sainz has plateaued out now, so he's not really closing at the rate he once was in 5th. So Piastri really needs to get a move on here if he's going to try and battle for that final spot on the podium. Piastri 4th, Sainz 5th, Perez in 6th, and has had a bit of an anonymous race. It's been disappointment for Mercedes in 7th and 8th, although Hamilton has just set the fastest lap, trying to steal an extra point for the fastest lap. You only get that point if you are scoring within the top 10 come the checkered flag. Gasly is 9th, having just got ahead of Hülkenberg, who's holding on to that final points paying position, but Fernando Alonso will like to take that away from the German driver in front of him. Alonso coming out onto the main straight now, gets a little bit of DRS, closes right onto the back of Hülkenberg, who moves to the inside to try and defend. Late on the brakes for Hülkenberg as Alonso sweeps round the outside. There's nothing Hülkenberg can do about it. Alonso gets himself an Aston Martin back up into the point with a nice clean move from the Spaniard.
Yeah, easy stuff for Fernando Alonso there. Sitting duck, unfortunately. Nico Hülkenberg was always going to be going down into turn 1. Talking about Lewis Hamilton setting the fastest lap of the race, he is obviously much more comfortable than George Russell on those tyres, and actually we joined Lewis right on cue, chasing down his teammate he is now only 1.6 seconds behind George Russell, and the gap last time round was 2.8. They have got traffic in front of them to deal with, but I wonder if Mercedes will just sort of let their drivers race. They're obviously in the points, 7th and 8th currently as it stands. So they want to keep their noses clean. Hamilton now is actually going to get boxed in by some of this traffic, so that's not going to help his progress to try and get past his teammate.
No, he's got Sargent and Albon in front of him, the Williams drivers. So, so far everyone's been abiding by the blue flag rules quite nicely, so hopefully they won't hold them up too much. Lap 65 of 72, and it's that gap just slightly coming down between Leclerc and Piastri for third. It's hovering at just over the 1 second mark, but it has come down, but not by much. Piastri just can't quite find enough to get that overtaking delta needed to really haul in the Ferrari in front of him. And I think Piastri will be quite disappointed by that. He's getting close to that DRS marker. He's just over a second out at the moment. Doesn't need to worry too much about the other Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, who's in 5th and about 5.5 seconds back at the moment, which is where he's been really for the last 5 or so laps. Then comes Perez, then the 2 Mercedes, as you were saying, Alice. Russell still ahead of Hamilton for the time being. Gasly and Alonso rounding out the top 10. But it's Lando Norris with clear views out in front of him as the sun shines down on the papaya orange of that McLaren car. The grandstand's full and it's a sea of orange, but I'm not sure it's quite the sea of orange for papaya. They might well have to settle for their man, Max Verstappen, in 2nd spot as he continues his longest winless run. But this race still with a few more laps yet to run. But that gap is sizable. In fact, I don't think we've seen a gap like that in quite a while for a race win, which sort of highlights how much we've been enjoying excellent Grand Prix over the last few races.
Yeah, no, some will say it's boring, hey? But we're loving it. We've got Lando Norris at the front of the field, heading Max Verstappen. Leclerc, you're right, Harry, is closing ever so slightly on Max Verstappen. The gap's way too big, though, unless Max goes off the road. And talking of drivers going off the road, we've only had 1 yellow flag during this race.
It's been very clean, this race, isn't it?
It's been very good, unless we've just now jinxed a little bit of traffic for Leclerc. He's just filed his way through. He's made it escape the traffic, didn't hinder him at all. Yeah, it was a lot less yellow flags than we had last year in these mixed conditions. So all the drivers done a good job. It was Magnussen that went off the road at turn 1 that caused the only yellow flag.
I tell you what, nobody other than Max Verstappen has won a race by as much as 10 seconds in nearly 2.5 years. We'll go back to Leclerc back in Australia in 2022. That is how dominant Lando Norris has been in this race. Although it didn't start off that way, it very much looked like another lap 1 error from Norris, whether it was an error on his behalf or the car. It was a lot of wheel spin for that McLaren. Either way, he lost the lead before they'd even got to turn 1 from Max Verstappen, but he kept calm, kept cool, kept collected. And at the moment, it is really going their way, and they are closing in on Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship. The gap, well, they will take 37 points from this race, and it will be, well, the 30, around about the less than 30 points between Red Bull and McLaren as they come into the next race. 31 points, I should say, around that point. That's the quick maths there, failing me. But Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, the top 3. Leclerc still holding on to that podium. Piastri cannot get underneath that 1 second mark. Then comes Sainz in 5th. Perez is 6th. Russell and Hamilton, the 2 Mercedes, in 7th and 8th. Gasly is 9th. Alonso rounds out the top 10. Then it's Hülkenberg, Stroll, Ricciardo, Ocon, Albon, the top 15. In 16th place, it's Logan Sargent. Then comes Tsunoda and Magnussen, and that is really the closest battle we have out on track at the moment. Sargent against Tsunoda, against Magnussen. And then comes Valtteri Bottas and the Sauber of Zhou Guan Yu, bringing up the rear of the field in what will be a day to forget for those right at the very back.
Touching distance for Hamilton on Russell, 1.3, 1.4 seconds. Lewis seeming more at home on the softer tyre here. Lando is about to touch the 20-second gap mark between him and Max Verstappen. He'll be pleased with the I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's been more one of a comfortable drives for Lando Norris out the front. Very quiet, lost the lead at the start of the race, of course, just got too much wheel spin off the line, and Max Verstappen was the leader down into turn 1. It was a bad start as well for his teammate Oscar Piastri, so McLaren will be investigating, I'm sure, just why those drivers weren't able to capitalise on their positions and dropping back ever so slightly. Piastri still up behind Charles Leclerc, trying to find a way past. 1.2 seconds, so he's not within touching distance. Look a little bit closer coming into turn 11. Let's have a look at the gap. I don't think he's close enough to activate DRS down the main straight. He's running out of laps to do it. 4 laps, 3 laps will be remaining. Joe, he's had a lap time deleted for track limits. It's almost a race though as well, Harry, of sort of 2 halves. There's you've had Gasly, who is 33 seconds, we're going to round it up, behind Hamilton, and then it's kind of similar gaps behind, and then you got Ocon, who's 23 seconds behind Daniel Ricciardo. So big splits throughout the field.
Well, no safety cars in this race, no threats of bad weather, nothing has come in the way of Lando Norris so far, with a utterly dominant drive. After a poor start, it has turned around like the flick of a switch. 20 seconds near enough, the gap between Norris and Verstappen, and Norris on his way to his second career win. His first win, of course, and that huge emotion back in Miami. I feel like it shouldn't be his second win. He should have had more on the board so far, but that is the way the cookie has crumbled. But right now, with 3 laps to go, Lando Norris arcs his way through the cambered left-hander of Hülkenholz, turn 3, and then through the roller coaster ride of 4, the slight left-hand kink through 5. You rise up over the crest of the hill at 6 as you then arc round again to the right and come back on yourself in the middle part of the lap through turns 8 and 9 as you then gearing up to get the first of the DRS zones. He has a bit of traffic in front of him. I don't think he's close enough to get that DRS, but arcs his way back through the left-hander of turn 10 and into the braking zone of 11 and 12 and extends the gap to over 20 seconds now between himself and Max Verstappen. Is this quite possibly turned into one of Lando Norris's best ever drives in Formula One?
Just because of the nature of the gap, you could say yes, but I still think Miami was a solid job. Okay, people say, well, he had some luck from the safety car, but he still had to work hard for it. I'm not saying he hasn't had to work hard for the win here. He certainly closed the gap, but McLaren certainly have had the better car. Certainly when you see the gap, 20 seconds is the gap, over 20 seconds now, the gap between him and Max Verstappen. I would still say that Miami would probably be the better one for me. I don't know if Andrew's got any different view on that, or if you have, Harry, but I certainly would say that this has been a complete drive by Lando, and clearly he has the car there.
Well, he's still got to get to the checkered flag, and we know what those last couple of laps, those last corners can be like when you're the driver, let alone the team. We've just seen some images of inside the McLaren garage, all looking still a little bit nervous, but they have got that huge gap. Charles Leclerc looks like he will hold on to that podium place in third. Piastri has not been able to close in and try and threaten. He's now just under 1.5 seconds back from the Ferrari. Sainz stabilising in fifth. Sergio Perez, who has been completely anonymous in this race, really, currently on course to stay sixth. 6.6 seconds behind Sainz, 5 seconds ahead of Russell. Then comes Hamilton in 8th, Gasly 9th, and Alonso rounding out the top 10. They will be the points scorers, with Ricciardo, Albon and Ocon the top 15. Sargent, Tsunoda, Magnussen, Bottas, Joe, the 20 drivers, as we start the final lap of the race here at the Dutch Grand Prix. And Lando Norris is really pushing in this final lap. He wants to take that fastest lap away from who currently holds it, Lewis Hamilton. He wants to do the triple. He wants pole position. He wants the Grand Prix win, and he wants the fastest lap to boot. He doesn't just want 25 points for the win. He wants 26 for that fastest lap, Alice.
Down in the end to making the difference in the championship. It's a long shot for Lando to get that championship victory or championship win off Max Verstappen, but it's possible.
The final lap of the Dutch Grand Prix, and Lando Norris round the final corner takes the checkered flag and wins the Dutch Grand Prix, his second career victory. Norris is utterly dominant and by over 20 seconds beats Max Verstappen on his home turf. Norris wins for McLaren. The Dutchman Verstappen will have to settle for second, as Charles Leclerc will take the final spot on the podium in third.
You almost can't see our pictures here with the fireworks exploding on the main straight. McLaren pitwall, Zach Brown clapping, cheering, gives the number one sign. A real great job by Lando Norris and McLaren. He did get the fastest lap, so gets that extra point in the bag when he might need it towards the end of the season. He waves to the crowd. Dominant display from him. He didn't have the lead at going down into turn one off pole position, but he was able to steal it back as the Papaya fans and some there with the British flag are celebrating along with Lando Norris.
Fantastic work from Lando Norris, and you know what? He did take the fastest lap point as well.
Well done. Well done. Oh, very good way. Simply lovely, huh? Well done. You did just sneak it in there as well. Fastest lap there. Thank you. Well done, boys. Incredible job. Car was unbelievable. Thank you so much. Incredible job. Let's keep pushing. Let's make it more easier, because it was still a tough race, but let's keep pushing. Love you all. Thank you. That was a strong drive. Well done.
It certainly was a strong drive from Lando Norris, and that's the first McLaren win at Zandvoort since Niki Lauda's last race win here back in 1985. But a fantastic run for Lando Norris and McLaren, and Verstappen could do nothing, Alice, to stop him.
So good job, Max. We got what we thought we would today, so head down. Nice job.
Yeah, difficult race that, but still P2, so that's okay.
Yeah, good drive, Max. We weren't quick enough today, but you got everything that there was in the car, so well done, damage limitation.
Well, let's head down to Rosanna, who's down at McLaren.
Zach, congratulations. It looked a little shaky at the start, but what a race by you and Lando.
It was a great job team did, so very excited. We earned that one the hard way.
You're going to go and celebrate, I'm sure. Just a quick word on Piastri, nearly a podium place for him. Did you get it wrong slightly on that side of the garage today?
Oh, no, he had a great pace, just couldn't quite get ahead of Charles. Ferrari did a great job, so it was a strong race and ready for the next one.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Rosanna speaking to the CEO of McLaren, Zach Brown, and Lando Norris then pulls into Parc Fermé in the P1 spot, clambers out of his car, and a fist in the air for Norris, a hard-earned win, and it was a shaky start, but he overcame that to showcase one of the most dominant drives we've seen in Formula One for quite a while, and that is saying something. Verstappen 22.8 seconds back in the end. Leclerc third, Piastri just off the podium in fourth, Sainz rounding out the top five, Perez in sixth ahead of the two Mercedes of Russell and Hamilton, Pierre Gasly ninth, Fernando Alonso stealing the final point in 10th. And Alex Verstappen climbing out of his car, he sounded very downbeat on the radio. Well, let's head back to Rosanna first.
Lando's just run over to congratulate some of the friends and family, I think, in the crowd, because it seems to me just photographers are at the far end of the Parc Fermé section. The mechanics are around the right-hand side leaning over the barriers, and Lando has gone back over, and I think there's lots of cheering going on from the fans. I wonder whether Max Verstappen has actually come out of the car yet. You've probably got a better vantage point than me at the moment, actually, Harry, because it's incredibly crowded down here in the pit lane. Here comes Lando Norris. He's, I think, getting weighed and measured, from what I can see.
Yeah.
He's taking maybe his gloves off. No. Here you go. There's the helmet. I can see the helmet. Such a vibrant green, highlighter kind of colour helmet. He's taken that off and he's just getting himself ready, I think, as Max Verstappen is weighed. Beautiful sunshine down here. The rain stayed away as well, Harry. That was a little bit of a jeopardy at the start, wasn't it? But a beautiful summer's day right by the seaside for Lando Norris.
It certainly was, and handshakes between Norris and Verstappen. Norris and Piastri as well comes over to congratulate his teammates. That was mighty from Lando Norris, and I honestly thought he'd lost it all at the start again, but what a turnaround.
Yeah, a great turnaround. And actually, don't know whether I look too much into it, but that handshake between him and Max Verstappen was a very quick one. No words really exchanged there, and of course that simply lovely radio message that Lando, that's often what Max Verstappen says when he wins, and I don't know whether a little bit of a jibe there. Tensions are rising. Lando will think he can win this championship, whether he says in the media, no, I can't. He's going to be gunning for it. He's feeling confident. He's so calm and chill. Yes, he didn't get the best of starts, but he did a great job to get the lead back, as we'll head down for post-race interviews, Harry.
Yeah, with former Formula One driver and Dutchman Guido van der Garde will be asking the questions.
Verstappen, P2, I think is not really the result you hoped for.
You always try to do better. I mean, we had a good start, so we tried everything we could today, but throughout the race I think it was quite clear that we're not quick enough, so I tried to be second today.
Well, with the start looked really, really nice. I mean, everybody was cheering you on. All the circuit went completely crazy on the grandstand. Did you dream a lot last night about the start, how you would manage to turn one?
To be honest, not at all. I know that we have good starts, so I was quite confident that we would have another one, and luckily it was like that. And then, I just tried to do my own race, and that was my race, and that was second today.
Anyway, good result, I think. Not that you hoped for. Maybe some words in Dutch as well. Misschien in Nederlands wat te zeggen.
Ja, natuurlijk. Kijk, het liefst win ik natuurlijk vandaag, maar ik kan ze niet allemaal winnen. En ik ben natuurlijk nog altijd heel blij met P2. Ik hoop dat iedereen ervan genoten heeft. En tot volgend jaar.
Top, man. Congratulations, well done. Good job.
Guido van der Garde talking to second place man Verstappen. Here's Leclerc in third.
Charles, wow, what a race, starting P6, finishing B on the podium. Unbelievable result for you and the whole team.
Yeah, very, very surprised. I'm not very often happy with a P3, but I think with today's race we can be extremely happy with the job we've done. On a difficult weekend for the team, we've been struggling from Friday until the race. In the race we found some more pace, executed a perfect strategy. We undercutted two of our competitors there, and then we managed to keep them behind. So a really strong race for the team, and really happy to start the second half like this.
Yeah, as you said, strategy, I think it was a really good call from the team, but also with the start you passed Perez, was also a good move.
Yeah, also at the start I knew it was a big opportunity. I didn't know that later on we will also have the pace to keep him behind, but I knew that the first lap was an opportunity for us to gain 1 or 2 positions. I went for the pass, it all worked well, but never would I have thought that I would stand on the podium after such a difficult weekend for the team.
Anyway, congratulations, well done for you and the whole team, and good luck next week at the Ferrari's home track.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A great turnaround for Ferrari in the end. Charles Leclerc getting third, teammate Sainz fifth. Here's our winner.
Lando Norris, you are a Heineken Dutch Grand Prix winner. How does that feel?
Thanks. It feels amazing. Yeah, once again. I wouldn't say a perfect race because of lap 1 again, but after was beautiful. You know, the pace was very strong. The car was unbelievable today, so I could get comfortable. I could push and get past Max, which was the main thing, and just go from there. So honestly, quite a straightforward race, still tough, but very enjoyable.
Did the orange arm help you a little bit?
Did what?
The Orange Army helped you a little bit because
I mean, we have so many fans here, so it's beautiful. I mean, I have a lot of Dutch fans and Dutch supporters, so I thank you very much. I mean, I'm sure some are a little upset, but I hope it was a good race, and there are a lot of them supporting me, so I appreciate it a lot.
By lap 80, when you passed Max, would you knew that already that you would win that race?
Yeah, I mean, I think from quite early on, actually, from probably lap 5, 6, 7, I expected Max to start pushing and get a bit of a gap, and he never did. So from that point, I knew we were in with a good fight. But he seemed to just keep dropping off, and my pace was getting better. So it's a nice feeling inside the car, and especially when I got past, I could just get comfortable, I could push, I had clean air, and that's always a big help.
Well done, man. Enjoy the moment, and good luck next week.
I will. Thank you, man. Thank you all.
Lando Norris, the winner of the Dutch Grand Prix, ahead of Max Verstappen in second and Charles Leclerc in third. And Alice, actually a word on Ferrari. I mean, Leclerc said it there, surprised, not often happy with P3, but that was a good turnaround for Leclerc, and Sainz recovering from 10th to finish 5th.
Yeah, I mean, considering where they were over the weekend, certainly the start of the weekend and through the practice session, of course qualifying, no wonder they're happy, because it wasn't looking good for them at all. So no wonder they are surprised. So good points in the bag for them. They will be pleased. Carlos Sainz, like you said, making some good progress up the field. Sergio Perez, he could be maybe slightly disappointed down there in 6th place. So a struggle for him. And then, of course, as Andrew touched on during the race, the Mercedes, what's happened to them? They've really struggled this afternoon.
30 points now between Red Bull and McLaren in the Constructors' Championship. That battle is on.
That battle certainly is on, and I know that there is big gaps in the Drivers' Championship, but who knows? It's so unpredictable. With many races left to go, it could start to hot up there as well. But certainly the Constructors is the one that's looking the closest fight at the moment.
70 points between Verstappen and Norris. If he has more races like that, it's not inconceivable that we have a driver's title on our hands.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of DNFs for Max, and if Lando's there to pick up the pieces, or say maybe he doesn't have to pick up any pieces, he just has to win the race, then it can change really quickly. If Max scores no points and in a couple of races and Lando gets a couple of wins, that's 50 points.
Don't forget Singapore's to come. And look what happened to Verstappen at Singapore last year. They had a nightmare, and they were struggling in Monaco, so that's a big opportunity for Norris to score.
As well, another street circuit to come up too. So exactly 100%. So it's not done yet. A lot can happen in Formula One, and it usually does.
Well, let's pick our flights to Abu Dhabi now then, to make sure we're there at the very end, because we do not know where this Formula One circuit is going to go. We're into the second half of the season now. We're past the second half of the season, really. We had 10 races left coming into that. Zandvoort done and dusted. 9 remain, and we are back in action next weekend straight away on Ferrari's home turf and home of the Tifosi at the Temple of Speed in Monza for the Italian Grand Prix. So not long to wait until we get back underway and see where everything lies. Any other outliers for you, Alice, that caught your eye at the end of that race?
Gasly, good result for him, getting some points for Alpine on the board. I think Fernando Alonso and the rest of Aston Martin will be disappointed with their result where they started. They were inside the top 8. Fernando 10th. Lance Stroll with that penalty dropped him down to 13th place. So disappointment for them. Albon, he'll be wondering, well, if only I started further up, wasn't disqualified, they could have had a better afternoon as well.
Yeah, Gasly and Alonso rounding out the point scorers. But a word on Sergio Perez as well, who qualified in 5th, and it actually didn't seem like that was too bad of a qualifying as we get the podium ceremony underway, and Charles Leclerc is first out onto the podium. Perez, though, ending up in 6th, quite a way back from Sainz, had a gap to Russell, but Perez needs to show more than that, doesn't he?
Yes, he does, and unfortunately for him, that's at least he finished in the top 6. He got his car into the final stages of qualifying, so positives from last time out, that is that's for sure. But yeah, he'll need to try and close that gap as Lando Norris is on the podium and listening to the British national anthem.
Yeah, it is, as the British national anthem gets going for Lando Norris, the winner of the Dutch Grand Prix. Max Verstappen could only manage second place in the end, very much in a race all on his own. And in third place, Charles Leclerc getting on to the podium, and back-to-back podiums for Charles Leclerc in the end. Third place in Belgium, followed it up by another third place here this afternoon at the Dutch Grand Prix. So, Alice, expectations then going forward to next weekend, because it's not long before we get back underway in Monza.
No, they come around quickly as Lando Norris has a massive smile on his face at the end of the anthem there, the crowd clapping and applause, and he receives this beautiful, huge trophy that they receive here. But no, I expect another battle between the McLaren and Red Bull.
Well, not long to go until we get that underway. My thanks to Rosanna Tennant down in the pits for us, Alice Power alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, and the BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Well, what a treat to come back to after a summer break. Yes, it was a dominant win in the end for Lando Norris, but has that shook up the order as we go into the final crux of this 2024 season? We shall see. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. Up next, stay here for the closing stages of the Women's Open Golf from St Andrews. That's getting underway shortly, but we shall see you in a few days' time for Monza, the Italian Grand Prix.